23 on the calendar in the matter of Pruitt versus Cox. Fights have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Ms. Pruitt, according to the complaint that I've read, you sublet a home from Mr. and Mrs. Cox. They had resided in a home as renters for how many years?
6.
They were moving, and they sublet that home to you and your 3 children. You gave them a deposit in the amount of $1,800?
Yes.
And you moved into the apartment on what date?
That was the 11th of September, 2004.
And then the house burned down?
Yeah.
When did the house burn down?
The 28th of September, 2004.
You lost everything in the fire, but you and your children escaped.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, you have to be grateful. Now, you want your security deposit back.
Yes.
Not the rent, because you actually lived there.
Well, I only lived there for about 2 weeks, but if it,
How much was your security deposit?
$600,
And what was the rent monthly?
$1,200.
So you paid $12 for rent
Mm-hmm.
for the month of September. Your security was $600. So while you're suing for $1,800, you lived there for 2 weeks. Let's say you should be entitled to $1,200, half a month's rent, and your security deposit. What time of the evening did your house burn down?
It was actually in the morning. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Do you have a police report or a
I
fireman's
have
report?
an arson report, yeah.
I'd like to see
in
it.
the back.
Okay, I'm listening.
Well, we rented her the house with the owners, okay, and I have right here the receipt from the bank in which I deposited $1,400 of the $1,800. $400 went to the painter and for the paint and the painting of the property. And
You're talking very fast. Let me see the piece of paper that she has for me.
and I'm not sure what report she has, but I'm sorry. But I have a fire report from the fire department that states that it wasn't the cause of the house that the fire burned. It was personal hazard, and it says other. And they stated to me that that meant
Don't
that...
tell me what anybody stated to
Okay.
you. Let me see what she has, if it's any different. I've read both of the reports. There is no indication that the fire was caused by the plaintiff. None in her report and none in this report.
I brought my daughter as a witness. She was there. She was in the house at the time it burned.
Okay, I'll hear you in a second. So you have $1,400 deposit that you made into the owner's account, which
Yes.
was your rent, because you sublet.
Her money I put into his account.
In whose account?
The owner's.
Are you the owner?
Yes.
Step up, please. Tell me your name.
My name's Pete Cameron.
Okay, Mr. Cameron. You know your account number?
I do.
Can I have it, please?
1009509.
Let me see it. You don't happen to have September's statement, do you?
I don't know.
The number 9509 may refer to just a bank, what branch that is, because the rest of the number is blacked out here on your deposit slip. You say that you didn't receive this money.
I'm not saying I didn't receive it.
Yeah.
If it's put in my account, it doesn't tell me whose check it was. Rick had been late on payments, rent payments, so he was making it up.
What do you mean he had been late on payments?
Well, he's having some financial difficulties and...
You mean what?
Yes.
So he had not been up to date on his rent. Is that right?
Right.
How much did you owe?
Well, we aren't exactly sure because he didn't have the accounts and some of my payments got late.
How much do you think you owe?
$700.
Probably more
lot
like
more.
double that.
No,
More than
not
that.
at all.
He says more. In any event,
It's hard to say. No.
just a second.
Not hard for me to
Doesn't
say.
make it.
I'm sorry.
You were living there?
Yes.
All right. Who are you?
I'm their daughter, Nicole Cox, and I was friends with Amanda too. Well,
So you're their daughter.
yes.
What were you doing living there with Miss Pruitt?
Amanda was short on money, the $1,800 to move in. She only had $1,400. So I came in with the other $400 and saved her there and myself in the process too. So that's what I was doing there.
Now I know what you're doing there. What do you know about the fire?
At about 6:30 that morning, my son woke up and came knocking on my door because all the kids were asleep in the living room. They had fallen asleep because it was kind of
I don't care why they were sleeping in the living room.
Well, he woke up, knocked on my door, and I let him in. About a half hour later, Amanda came running through my bedroom door, topless. Nicole, help! Nicole, help! I jump up real quick and I look. The bedroom doors are right next to each other. It was a big orange glow. Okay, so I was like, fire! I yelled out, fire! So I came back to my room, got my son and my phone and my boyfriend and the dog, and we ran out and called 911. My son told me shortly after.
Don't tell me what your son told you.
He's here.
How old is he?
He's 6.
Bring him in. And don't speak to him.
Come on.
I want to try to make him feel a little more comfortable because you're scared to death.
Now, don't be nervous. Judge's going to ask you some questions, okay?
Tell me your name.
Matthew.
Matthew, would you like to sit on your knees or are you comfortable?
Fine.
You're fine?
Yeah.
Good. How old are you?
6.
You have very beautiful eyes. Very lovely eyes. Do you know what color your eyes are?
Mm-mm.
You don't?
I can't see my eyes.
Let me see. Oh, they're beautiful. They're a blue-green. They're very, very pretty.
That's turquoise.
Okay. You're a very smart boy, Matthew, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and you know who I am, right? What's my name?
Judge Judy.
Are you frightened to be here?
No.
I didn't think so. How wonderful. Do you want to have a talk show? Okay, Matthew, do you remember being in the house when there was a bad fire?
Yeah.
Did you see how that fire started?
Yeah. There was a
Now
candle.
look at me.
There was a candle in Savannah's room
A candle?
where Amanda was sleeping
How do you know that's where the fire started?
because there wasn't a little doorknob in there, and I saw a little glow light, and I just looked through, and I just saw.
You saw that it was on fire or you saw that it was a candle?
Yeah, it was a candle.
What time was that? In the morning?
It was 6 o'clock when I woke up.
So it was about an hour before the fire started that you saw the candle burning? You're a very smart boy, Matthew. Very smart, and it's been a pleasure meeting you. You want to go back to your mom? Good.
Good boy.
Is he cute?
Thank
you. And smart.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to go out and get a job. Take all your energy, put it towards this little boy who has great potential. And
Says her child's grandparents owe for the return of her first month's rent and security deposit. Donna and Ricky Cox claim Amanda accidentally burned down the house.
is this your only child, Nicole?
Yes, it is.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a homemaker.
Who supports Matthew?
Me and his father. I'm on aid.
Matthew goes to school?
Yes.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to go out and get a job. I want you to take every dime that you earn and put it in a trust account for him.
For college.
He's too old for you to be a homemaker and for you to be on aid. He's too smart for that. So why don't you do the right thing? Don't have any more children for a while. Take all your energy, put it towards this little boy who has great potential, and don't blow it.
Gotcha.
Good. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Cox, let me tell you this. Let me say that I believe everything you say, that you took the $1,400 that Miss Pruitt gave to you and you put it in the bank.
She meant me at the
And
bank.
shh. And you put it in his account. That doesn't let you off the hook.
Okay.
Because the house burned down, she gets a security deposit back.
Okay.
There is insufficient proof, even with Smart Matthew's testimony, that this candle that she may have had burning in her room actually was the cause of the fire.
Okay.
Insufficient proof because he said it was 6 o'clock. The fire didn't start till 7 o'clock. We don't know. It's possible, but we don't know that for a fact. She is entitled to rent back for a couple of weeks because she only lived in the house for 2 weeks. Now, if you believe that Mr. Cameron should return that money to you, sue him. But then Mr. Cameron is going to say, listen, you put that money into my bank, but you owed me for rent, a lot of money for rent. And if you owed me for rent, that's not her money.
Right.
That's your money. You got it. You can't flim-flam. You don't want to be a bad example, do you?
No.
For Matthew?
Not at all.
No, not if I let you.
I wouldn't anyhow.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,200. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We put in thousands of dollars into this house,
They never did deposit any money.
regardless of the rent.
Versus Griggs. Step forward.
Karen Lazan is suing Tanya Griggs for damages to her vehicle and rental fees. Karen claims Tanya's son, 11-year-old Brendan Cheney, threw a rock at her car.
Get Mr. Crossed Arms over here, would you please, Bird?
Sure.
How old are you?
11.
What's your name?
Brendan.
Do well in school? Give your mother any trouble?
No.
Never.
Sometimes just,
Ever been in trouble in school?
yeah, sort of.
What do you mean, yes, sort of?
Sometimes I've been not that good in school.
You ever get suspended from school?
Yeah.
How many times?
Like a couple last year.
What about this year?
None yet.
None yet. When you're suspended from school, what is it for?
Usually fighting.
Who do you fight with?
Other boys.
Are they suspended too, or just you?
Them too.
You think that makes your mother happy?
No.
You think it makes her proud of you?
No.
All right. Now we're going to get down to business. Because, you know, sometimes you tell your mother a baloney story and she believes you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I raised a lot of children. I like children who tell the truth, and children who don't tell the truth do not do well here. We understand each other? So I don't care what baloney story you told your mother. Here we're going to talk about the truth, because I know everything. Okay. What did you throw at Miss Luzon's car?
A pine cone.
Where did you get it from?
The floor.
Why did you throw it at her car?
I wasn't.
Look at me. Why did you throw it at her car?
I wasn't aiming for her car. I was trying to throw it over the sign of Burger King.
That's a high sign. Her car wasn't flying, was it, Brendan?
No.
So how did this pine cone that you were throwing up at the sign in Burger King hit her car?
I don't know. I didn't see it hit it. I walked over there and then she started talking to me.
How many pine cones had you thrown that day?
Just one. That one.
That was very unlucky. When you got home, did you tell your mother what happened?
No.
How come you didn't tell your mother when you came home?
I felt like I'd be in big trouble for doing that.
Right. Did you get good grades in school last year?
And they never sent me my report card.
Really? Did you get a report card for him last year?
I'm sure that I did.
Says you never got one last year.
I'm sure that I did.
Well, it must not have been memorable. Okay. Did you apologize to Miss Luzon for damaging her car?
Yeah.
What did you say to her?
Said sorry for throwing a pine cone at your car.
Is that what he said to you?
No.
Sorry for throwing the pine cone at your car? Sorry for throwing the pine cone at your car? Is that what he said to you?
He actually didn't apologize until the following day when an officer came out to the school and pulled him out of class and spoke to him.
Did you see the damage to her car?
Yeah.
What did it look like?
It was a big dent.
Big dent. Did you tell your mother it was a big dent?
No.
Well, when she stopped you in the street and asked you for her name, wasn't she near her car?
Yeah.
And what you're telling me is you didn't look at the car to see where the damage was?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You didn't look at it? You think I believe that? Smart boy like you's have been suspended 3 times from school for fighting? Who thinks that he's a real wise guy? Didn't look at the car and to see what kind of damage you did to the car? She didn't point it out to you?
No.
Mm-hmm. Go over and stand over there. Have a picture of the car?
Yes. This is in front of, actually, the Burger King by a circle on that.
I said
Yeah, the
stand. Over there. Where is this, around the wheel?
Yes, above it.
Oh, okay. Now, when you initially confronted the defendant's mother, she gave you initially $150.
I remember $50 because we were going back and forth. She changed from every phone call we were talking to
Did you get an
each other.
estimate?
Yes. She kept changing
You
the
don't have
amount
the money
that she could afford.
November 5th, 2004, for $358. How much did you give her?
$150 with a money order.
Okay, you have a copy of the money order?
No, ma'am, I don't. I could not find it in my records. It was a paper money order from the liquor store around the corner. I got it for $150 because I was not working at the time. I believed her because she seemed like an honest woman, that my son had thrown something at her car. I know that I'm responsible for
Well,
him.
he did throw something at her car.
Well, he told me it didn't hit her car, that it flew over the street sign.
He's lying.
If it was a pine cone.
Listen to me.
If
Listen,
it was a
that's-
pine cone.
Listen to me. If that's what he told you then, that it didn't hit her car, he was lying.
He's
to
my
you.
son, and
Just
I
a
have to
second.
believe him.
Just a second. But he was lying to you because he just told me he did hit her car. No, listen to me. He just told me he did hit her car. So
it
if
hit
he
her car?
told you, don't look at him, look at me. If he told you he didn't hit the car, he was lying. Because he just told me he did. He told me he hit it with a pine cone. So if he told you that he didn't hit her car, he was lying.
I don't believe that he was lying. I think that you are very intimidating to him.
Listen to me.
I do
This
believe
little
that
boy,
those pictures,
this little boy who has been suspended from school at least 3 times is not so intimidated by an adult.
I believe
what
so.
happens is when you listen to a child, that's trouble with a big T.
2 children fighting, not just him.
Listen to me. 3 times. I had 5 children. Do you know how many
Did he
times?
tell you
Listen to
3?
me. I had 5 children. Of the 5 children, you know
Did
how
they
many
ever
were
get a chance to
suspended
speak?
1 time? Zero. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $208. That's all. Step out.
Got her 208.
I used to volunteer at that school a lot, and I saw him in the office several times.
From the police department contacting me.
So I knew that there was a problem and problems at home.
They just asked me if I was willing to make it right with her.
As far as Tanya taking responsibility, she never did. She spoke to me and made a small payment one time.
On the matter of Wade versus Ortiz Hoover. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Miss Wade, I gather from your complaint that this young man was your boyfriend and then your fiancé. Is that right?
Correct.
How long were you engaged?
About 1 year and 4 months. I'm sorry, 4 months. We were engaged. We were in a relationship for 1 year and 4 months.
When did you become engaged?
March 31st.
And when did it terminate?
August 14th.
According to your complaint, prior to the termination of your relationship, you claim that the defendant and his mother asked you to pay for certain medical and dental bills for Mr. Ortiz, and you paid for the dental work that Mr. Ortiz had done with the expectation that you were going to get paid. You claim that his mother did send $150 a month towards this extensive dental work that he had, but as soon as the engagement was over, so were the payments. In addition, you claim that Mr. Ortiz had some chiropractic work done at your chiropractor that you believe he was to pay back. Mr. Ortiz says none of these things are true. You chose to pay for him to have dental work. Let me see. Smile. Very nice. Some of the dental work was cosmetic?
It was more reconstructive. They tore out old pieces. I had root canal done as well.
On your front teeth?
No.
Back teeth?
Yeah, back teeth. Nothing visible.
Okay. Mr. Ortiz says that in addition to this stuff being gifts, these bills being gifts by you because you were living together and planning a life together, that you refused to return the engagement ring, which I assume you have right over there. You say you're not returning the ring. It was a gift to you. Can I see the ring? I always like to look at rings. Very lovely. So we'll decide where it goes. Who terminated the relationship?
Aaron did.
Why, Mr. Ortiz?
I felt that I wasn't being treated respectfully. During parts in our relationship, she did verbally abuse me, attack me in different ways, eventually confronting me physically. She said that she apologized over and over.
When you say she confronted you physically, she hit you?
She pushed me, and she also smacked my hat off, basically in the middle of an argument because I didn't do the dishes.
Smacked your what?
My hat off that I was wearing at the time. I apologize.
Because you didn't do the dishes.
Yeah, that confrontation led up until the big argument. I continued to tell her to get out of my face or get out of my way. Eventually, I went to my room, packed up all my belongings, threatened her, and said, "This is it," and
I'm leaving.
Yeah, and she begged me not to do so. She said that she would seek some sort of help. She said that she would talk to somebody because of it. She also sought help from my mother numerous times.
So you decided this is not something that you wanted to make a lifelong
Right, I didn't want
tradition
it for my kids.
of.
Exactly.
That sounds reasonable, Miss Wade. Good idea.
That would sound reasonable if that was the truth, but it's not.
So let me hear you.
Your Honor, I was madly in love with Aaron, and I had been, since the beginning of our relationship, taking him to a dental clinic where his mother was paying for...
Are you telling me why you broke up?
No, well, I can tell you why.
Well, that's where we're at right now.
I'm sorry.
You have your agenda, I have mine.
I never hit him.
Did you have an argument?
Of course.
Did you have an argument over the dishes?
I'm sure we probably did.
Is that the day he moved out? I want you to tell me about the day he moved out.
No, he didn't move out. I moved out.
You left?
I moved out.
Just a minute. You left?
After he told me he didn't want to be with me anymore, yeah.
He gets the ring back.
He shouldn't get the ring back.
He gets the ring back. I'm going to tell you why he gets the ring back. Because an engagement ring is a gift given, in my judgment, contemplation of a marriage taking place. But if the marriage never takes place, the reason for this gift becomes a nullity. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay, good. So now you can give him back his ring. Thank you. You wouldn't want it anyway. Your next fiancé wouldn't like you to have it in your jewelry box. So the only thing that you do with it is sell it. Now I want you to tell me about the dental bill.
When I started my relationship with Aaron, he was going to a dentist. We had been taking him week after week, and he was still in pain. So by referral, we found a new one. I took him for his consultation.
You were living together?
We were living together, yes.
When you say you took him?
I drove him. He had no transportation. He had no job. He had no car.
You got the same age?
So he's 29. I'm 26.
Okay, go ahead.
I drove him to his consultation. He went in, spoke with the dentist, and asked me to come into the room where we all sat down. And the consultant talked to us about what work he needed to be done. From there, we knew that both of us couldn't afford to do this. I was supporting him. He was in school. So we went to his mom, and she said that she could afford to make $150 a month payments. She couldn't afford to make the payments directly to the dentist because she was doing construction on her house. So she couldn't get the credit for it. Aaron had bad credit, so the only other choice was me, and I had good credit. So we decided to open up a credit card under my name, and Elaine made the payments for 10 months.
Did she give you $150 a month?
Yes.
And what did you do with the check?
I wrote a check to the credit card company and sent it off.
No, that's not what you did. Don't play with me, Miss Wade. That's not what you did. What you did was deposit the check into your checking account and wrote your check to the credit card company. You didn't endorse her check to the credit card company. You put the check into your personal account from which you paid all your bills, right?
Correct.
And then you paid the dentist.
Correct. And I kept a log of it, every check. I have every check that she wrote me. I have all of the bills from the dentist. I was very careful about keeping track of how much they paid, when they paid, and how much was still due.
I'd like to see it. What are you doing now, Mr. Ortiz?
I'm a full-time student. I've just sought part-time seasonal work for Tiffany & Company.
You're a full-time student at what? You're 29 years old.
I go to the Art Institute of California, San Diego. I study advertising.
Who do you live with?
I live on my own. I support myself.
From what?
I took out student loans, grand amounts, which were co-signed, thankfully, by my parents, because they convinced me that I was in need of that education, and I also wanted to seek it and also obtain a bachelor's degree by the time I was 30. It's always been a good goal of mine.
You just prepared this, is that right?
I kept a log as we were together.
No. I don't believe you.
Well, all the numbers are there.
I don't believe you.
I
believe that you did this to come to court, so we don't take those things.
I did not do it to come to court.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'll give her the ring. You want
His mother, Elaine Hoover, owe for medical and dental bills. Aaron and his mother are countersuing for the return of the engagement ring.
Where is the one credit card that you took out to pay these dental bills?
It's a different credit card, and I kept the balance on that.
Listen to me. You said that you took out a credit card, opened a credit card in order to pay the dentist. Let's say the dentist was $2,900. You would have an opening balance of $2,900, and then you would have each month $150 being paid, because that's what you did. You said you wrote out a check for $150. So what are you giving me this for?
That shows the amount that I gave the credit card to the dentist, and she ran it.
Listen to me. There are a whole bunch of bills on this thing.
There are.
Having nothing to do with the dentist.
Correct.
Right.
But I'm not suing him for those. I'm just for
You understand what you said to me, Miss Wade? What you said was you opened a credit card for the purpose of paying the dental bill. And each month you paid off $150 a month, which is what she gave you. And that's a lot of baloney, because you had a credit card. You used this credit card for things like Chin Seafood Restaurant, Party City, Staples, Lowe's, Shell's Oiled, Ralph's, Henry's, TJ Maxx, Ralph's, Ultramar, Albertsons. So you didn't have one credit card that you used, so let's change the testimony. The testimony is not one credit card for the dentist. You used your existing credit card and paid the dentist from your existing credit card. Is that right? Now, show me where each month on your credit card you made a payment of $150 a month.
I made more than that, Your Honor.
Well, then that's your problem. You didn't keep neat records. Return this to her, Bird, please.
Your Honor.
I believe that she paid you $150 a month. She says she paid you $150 a month to help cover her son's expenses. That's not where the case is at, Miss Wade. That's your problem. Your problem is with Mr. Ortiz. You got the teeth?
Yes, Your Honor.
You pay the bill.
When she promised to do so...
You pay... You got the teeth?
Yes, Your Honor.
You pay the bill. How much was the ring?
The ring was approximately $1,100.
I'll give her the ring. You want me to deduct it from what you owe her? Good. Your mother says yes. Give her the ring.
I have something.
Give her the ring.
I have something to say.
Give her the ring. No, you don't.
Okay, I'll wait.
You could wait until it freezes over.
Okay.
How much does he still owe you for the dentist? He's 29 years old. His mother can sit down.
$3,606.
I want to see the bill for the ring. Well, he paid $1,000 for the ring. You can probably sell it for $600.
I would rather give him the ring back than have to pay him for it. I just don't think that's right.
Well, let me explain something to you, my dear. He has very little money because he's a full-time student. He's what you picked. Do you understand? And while his mother may have said, I'll pay you some money, he was living with you, contributing nothing. And there's something to his mother's statement, which I read, that suggests to me, what do you want?
Sorry, that's not true, Your Honor. I did contribute as often as possible. Student loans that were taken out and co-signed by my parents, I strictly signed over to her. Every single penny that I made.
Listen to me. It's good, but you didn't make many pennies. Your problem is you didn't make many pennies and you didn't have enough pennies to pay for your own dental work, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If she were going to have, Mr. Ortiz, the benefit of your nice, wonderful smile for the rest of her life, we wouldn't be sitting here today. But a 29-year-old man doesn't allow somebody else to pay to have their teeth fixed. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you have to pay for it. And it's very nice to live on your own. How far do you live from your parents?
5 miles.
Good, move back home. Save a whole bunch of money. And whatever your student loans are or what you earn from your part-time job, take care of by taking care of your responsibilities. Very nice to live alone and be a grown-up when you're 29. But if you want to be a grown-up when you're 29 years old, you don't let somebody else pay for your dental bills. Now, as far as the chiropractor is concerned, because you went to your chiropractor and found he had gone to the chiropractor, so you paid his bill.
We went to the chiropractor at the same time I had taken him to his appointment, and the chiropractor asked for payment. At that time, he had been numerous times. It was totaled of $210. Aaron said that when he got money from school the following semester, he would reimburse me.
Is that what he said to you right then and there in the chiropractor's
That's what he said right then and
office?
there at the office.
I don't believe you. How's that?
It's the truth.
Don't believe you.
It's the truth.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Because that's not the way people who sleep together talk to each other. That's not the way people who are intimate with each other talk to each other. As soon as I get my money from my student loan next semester, I'm going to reimburse you for it. Come over here.
If he had a job, he would have
You
paid for
picked
it.
him.
Unfortunately,
You picked him.
yes.
You picked him. Well, right now, sell the ring. You still owe $3,000. That's for your teeth. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She wants money? That's all she
Want them. Step forward.
20-year-old Karina Villa is suing her former friend, 18-year-old Sarah Welcome, for crashing her car during a night of drinking. Sarah says Karina handed her the keys.
Ms. B, according to what I read, you and the defendant and maybe some of these other young ladies went to a party or something, had a little too much to drink. You gave the defendant the keys to your car, asked her to drive home because you had had too much to drink. She did and wrecked your car.
Yes.
You want her to pay for the car.
Not pay for the car, just the loss of my job and the deductible.
Why the loss of your job?
The night that this happened, when I gave her the keys to my car, she explained to me that she did not have nothing to drink. And if this would have not happened, I would have had my job, I would have had my car, I would be working every day. And she just wrecked my car and didn't talk to me anymore, and that was it.
So what did you do?
What did I do? Well, the first few months, it was calling her.
Where do you live?
Where do I live?
Is there an echo in here? Where do you live?
Lamont, California.
Is that rural area?
It's the country, you would say.
Who do you live with?
My mother.
Does your mother have a car?
Yes.
What does she do for a living?
She works for the government. She works for BLM.
Did you look for a job near where your mother works?
There's nothing out there where she works. She works probably like 20 miles away from where I live.
So you want her to pay you for the 2 months that you were out of work because she wrecked your car?
Well, not really that. Deductible would be nice and...
All right, here we go. So we've now eliminated a good part of your lawsuit, which was ridiculous anyway. Let's get to the deductible. First, why did you drink so much that you couldn't drive?
It wasn't... I had like 2 beers, probably. And I didn't want to drive my car drinking and driving.
And you? How many beers did you have?
Probably about 3. And she knew I had been drinking.
Don't tell me what she knew.
Okay.
What did you say when she gave you the keys to the car?
I was standing at the back side of her car. We were starting to leave. She started getting the driver's side of her car, said she couldn't drive, asked if I would drive because she had already previously been in trouble for drinking and driving, didn't want to drive her car. So I said, I'll drive. She, we had been drinking together because earlier that night she drove her car to my friend's house, Brittany, where I had been at.
Now, once she handed you the keys, if you had been drinking, why did you take them?
It was an honest mistake to take the keys in the first place. But I did.
How could it be an honest mistake? If you had had 3 beers.
Yeah, I shouldn't have taken the keys.
They were getting to a certain amount of responsibility.
Yes, I shouldn't
Should
have
not have
taken the
taken the keys. Now, do you think that you are in any way responsible for Miss Villa's out-of-pocket expenses?
In part, yes.
Good. How much did you offer her?
Our insurance company, and I have the paperwork that says how many times our insurance company tried to get a hold of her. They refused to talk to him. They said they'd pay for it, pay for the damage to her car. She refused to talk to my insurance company. So she had...
Did you talk to your insurance company?
Yes.
Shh. Did you tell your insurance company that you had been drinking and
Yes.
driving? Let me see. And let me see the claim letter that you put into your insurance company. Was anybody else in the car with you, by the way?
No.
Nobody was in the car with you when you had this accident?
No, not besides her, no.
She was in the
Yes,
car.
her.
And I do have pictures.
You got paid $2,088.74 so far?
No, just the $1,520 that was paid for the salvage.
Most of the car wasn't fixed.
No,
So where's your $500 deductible?
it was taken out because
Let me see. Okay, I'm back with you.
What, do I think I owe her for the entire thing out of that? The deductible, if anything? Because the loss of her job is not my fault. She already had a previous
Forget the loss
driving.
of her job. I already told you. I'm not interested in the loss of her
Okay.
job. Abraham Lincoln walked 5 miles each way to school. She wants to get a job, she can get a job.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the deductible.
I would think that since I was in part responsible for driving, that I would owe her the deductible.
Great. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $500.
All these are excused. You may step out.
You couldn't drive anymore, asked me to drive.
Then you may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Ms. Minor, you and the defendant used to be friends, and your children used to play with each other. This is your son?
Yes.
How old is he?
He's 7.
And these are your 2 girls?
Yes, ma'am.
And they are?
8 and 10.
Okay. According to your complaint, Ms. Minor, at some point, the 3 children were playing together, and when your son came home, you saw he was all disheveled and he had a scratch on his face. You asked him what happened, and he told you that there was an incident involving these 2 little girls, that they got him down on the ground, and they pulled his clothes, and they scratched him, and he was... And you were upset.
Yes.
So you went to speak to the defendant. And didn't get much satisfaction.
No, ma'am.
And after that time, you stopped speaking to each other.
Yes.
When was that?
When we stopped speaking to each other? In September.
And then your complaint is that you were going to see someone or drop someone off at the apartment complex where the defendant lives.
Yes.
And when was that?
That was on December the 22nd.
And is your claim that she came out and assaulted you?
Yes, ma'am.
And the defendant says, no, that's not true, that you actually assaulted her, and she's counterclaiming.
Yes, ma'am. Also for harassment to my minor child.
How long were you friends, Miss Rancon?
I know Miss Minor from approximately from the age of 15.
Always got along?
I mean, not always, but never nothing that kept us from not talking to each other.
Now, when Miss Minor came and told you that your girls had not been playing nicely with her son, do you remember that?
Miss Minor never came and talked to me about this.
Never?
Never. She had just dropped them off, and then she came in front of my house and pulled them apart, cussed my daughter out.
She pulled them apart. That would suggest to me that there was some sort of a dispute between your 2
something
daughters.
was going on between the children.
And the boy.
There was something going on between the children.
Well, did you ask your daughters?
Yes, I did.
And what did they tell you?
I asked them what happened. They said, well, Tehran, he was out there causing problems with all the neighborhood kids, that Tehran and my youngest ended up in an altercation, that Miss Nicole had came and pulled Vivi and cussed her out and had her crying.
That's Vivi, your youngest daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
What about your older daughter? What did she do?
She told me she stood there in disbelief. She couldn't believe that Miss Nicole, which they always looked to as a go-to person, somebody they knew that I was friendly with, somebody, you know, they could trust, that they would even treat my children
So your
like this.
older daughter didn't participate in this fight?
No.
Is that right?
No, I didn't.
Is that right?
No.
So come over here and tell me what happened. First, tell me your first name.
Tehran.
Tehran. Well, this is a long time ago to remember, but the last time that you played with the girls, do you remember that?
Yes.
Did you have a fight with one of the girls?
Yes.
Which one?
Vivi.
What was the fight about?
Well, she kept threatening things, so I called her mom fat, and then she
No,
said,
no, I don't hear you.
I called her mom fat, and then she said, come say it to my face, so I did.
Okay, she was saying things that you didn't like.
Yes.
So you called her mom fat,
Yes.
and she got mad at you.
Yes.
So what happened? Look at me.
She pushed me, so I pushed her back, and that's when we fight.
So the 2 of you were fighting,
Yes.
and then what happened?
And then my mom was coming, and then she told my mom about calling her mom fat, and then my mom got out the car, and then she told me to get in the car, and then we ran around the block, and then I told her everything. And then
Well, what
she
did you
got
tell
a
her?
war. I told her somebody else was helping too, and then she made me go fight.
Who was
him.
helping you?
Shit!
Sorry.
Pop.
Who was that?
It was my friend's cousin.
So somebody else was there too.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And so my mom wanted me to go fight him, and
You
then
wanted to go fight your friend. Did you?
yes.
So your mother drove you over to where your friend was?
No, she walked me over.
And after she walked you over, she said, go fight him?
No, she said, do what you have to do, what he did to you.
Is that what happened that day?
Yes.
Now, you want me to believe, Miss Minor, that your son is telling the truth when he testifies in court, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, after this incident involving her little girl, you found out from him that his friend was also involved. And you brought him over to his friend so that he could beat up his friend like he got beaten up.
No, I brought him over there to get a chance to fight one-on-one with the kids. They jumped him. He told me that Yolanda held him down while Vivi beat him up.
Well, that was not what he told me.
Okay.
And what I don't understand is, why would you take your boy back to this other boy and say to him just what your little boy said you did? Do what you have to do.
Because they jumped him.
You know that I'm not happy with you,
Yes,
right?
ma'am, I do. But that's my child, and I seen a bunch of kids in a circle jumping him. Shirt ripped off of him, scratches. I'm like, what's wrong? He never cried, but I could tell he wanted to cry, was hurt. And I asked Vivi, why would you do that to him, Vivi? Because he called my mom fat. And then I asked him, did you want to fight the boy? Because you're not going to fight no girl. And he said he wanted to go back and fight the boy, and I took him around there to fight the boy. I mean, they're the same age.
You think that's normal?
No,
I mean, you're saying to me, Miss Minor,
No,
you're saying to me as if you got that parenting lesson that you're just telling me about after reading a lot of books on parenting skills and listening to a lot of public service television on how to raise your children. You're telling me that you walked him back there to this boy and said to him, do what you have to do, and you felt as if it was the best way to teach your son life skills? You must have thought about those things,
I didn't really think about them things.
Or you acted just from here and said, this is what has to be done. You be a man.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She scratched my face, scarred my...
Says former friend Yolanda Yoli Rincon attacked her without warning. Yolanda says Nicole had been terrorizing her children. She is countersuing for her damages.
Miss Minor, just let's get to December 22nd.
Okay, December the 22nd, I dropped a friend off named Lopez, just picking my mother up from the airport coming from Florida. As Lopez was getting out the car, Yolanda comes running out the door. I opened my door to get out my car. I never
Well, just a second. Why did you open your door to get out of the car?
Because I seen that she was coming to me to say something to me. So I wanted to get out the car. I didn't want my mom and my son to be a victim of whatever we was going to argue about.
Just a second. Why didn't you just leave? You're in the car. You're in the driver's seat of the car. Why didn't you just turn the motor on and say,
She
listen?
was at my door by the time, you know, she was at my car door.
No, you said, I saw her coming. You opened the door to get out of the car because you didn't want your mother and your son to see you fighting with her.
I didn't plan on fighting. I didn't know I was going to fight. I thought she was just going to come out there and talk to me. I haven't talked to her since the incident. I seen her one time at the laundromat, and she laughed it off. And that was that.
What did she say when she said
I said, Yoli, that was messed up what you told your kids to do to my son. She said, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. Get out my face.
Just a minute. What did she tell her kids to do to your son?
I thought she told her kids to jump my son because he called her mom fat.
There is something clearly wrong with you. That is not what your son said. He said that they were playing outside, that this little girl was threatening him.
Well, he got...
Stop speaking! So he said to her, well, your mom's fat. And then they started to fight. So that you said, in your head, she told her children to beat him up? So what happened? So you opening your car door.
I went to open my car door to see what Yolanda wanted, and she just dove in on me, punching me, pulling out my hair, biting me.
Okay. Now, first I want you to get to the portion of your counterclaim that talks about the harassment.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it is your claim that the plaintiff has been harassing your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to tell me what you believe that Miss Minor was doing to your daughter.
Okay, I just want to clear up the day of the incident. I could have never told my kids to jump this little boy because I wasn't at work. I was at work.
There's no question that
I was just saying I was at work.
There's no question that you did. She's not operating with a full stack.
About a week and a half later, I did see her at the laundromat. Now, as soon as I see her, I could tell by her facial expression she had an attitude. I walk up to her, Nick, what's going on with the kids? She's like, don't worry about it. She gonna get hers. I'm like, what you mean she gonna get hers? That's right, she gonna get hers. I'm like, you sound crazy. You talking about a little girl. I told my son to bite a big chunk of meat out her arm. I was like, I couldn't even talk no more. I got in my car and I left. The next incident that she harassed my daughter was in the school. Both my daughters came to me that day and told me, Miss Nicole seen us in the hallway. She comes up to us. Your mommy's ugly. Your mommy's fat. I'm going to beat you up and I'm going to beat her up.
Okay, next incident.
Okay, the next incident. About 5 to 6 times, just driving through the neighborhood, she's either sticking her tongue out, she's sticking her middle finger up,
You mean at the girls?
Yes.
And the girls told you about that?
Yes.
So after that happened, what did you tell the girls?
I'm like, look, something's wrong with her. She has problems. I don't want no problems. I don't need no problems. I'm a hard-working mother.
But you were angry.
I was upset and hurt.
You were upset and hurt and angry. I would be angry if someone did that to my children.
I was angry.
Right.
No doubt.
Now, on December 22nd, being angry, you saw her at your house. What was she doing?
Actually, Miss Judge Judy, I was laying on the couch, was resting. My daughter busts out crying. Miss Nicole's outside sticking her tongue out at me.
So you went outside and
I went
you
outside.
were angry.
Upset.
Angry.
I was angry.
Outside.
I went outside. I tapped on the window. She flung the door open. The door hit me. We just got in a confrontation. She scratched my face, scarred my face. You could see it clearly. She gnarled on my hands. I'm a cook. I need my hands. She tried to dig my eyeballs out. She's just crazy, Judge.
Did you know she was crazy before? You told me that you knew at the laundromat that she was crazy.
Yes, ma'am.
So here she comes to your house, and your daughters come in and say she's making threatening gestures towards your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
If I had to guess, Miss Rincon, who started this fight, it would be you. You lost it because someone had been harassing your daughters, wrongfully harassing your daughters, because the trouble really wasn't with your daughter, because as Miss Minor now knows, your older daughter didn't have anything to do with this altercation. It was your little girl, and they're about the same size and the same age, and some boys. So she had absolutely no reason to be angry with your daughters. None. Except she's a little bit touched and acted inappropriately as a parent. But there's no question in my mind that as inappropriately as she acted, you were angry at her reactions to your children. The response to that is to call the police, call the authorities. The response to that is not go to take a piece out of her, which is really what you went to do. You went there to confront her because you had it up to here with her behavior. All right, now I'd like to see your police report.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I love Yoli's kids. I've always loved Yoli's kids. I offered to take them out shopping, take them out hanging out with me. I wouldn't threaten their kids like that. They're kids.
I got to tell you something, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't treat children that you love that way.
Yes, ma'am. That's true.
I mean, if you can take your son over and tell him to beat somebody else up, to take care of business as a way of dealing with a problem, I have serious reservations as to whether I would let you take my children shopping. Okay. You have anything you want me to read?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it, please.
I have Miss Minor's criminal history, and she has several batteries, several disorderly conducts, an assault, all kinds of stuff. And also that day we were fighting, she called her child and they were telling, the mother and her both were telling this little boy to hit me. He was beating me down with a Rubik's Cube. They were telling the little boy, find a knife so he could stab me. They were directing this child to stab me.
Listen to me. I told you. You know I'm pretty good at sizing people up.
Yes, ma'am.
You've known her for a long time. You did the wrong thing by going over to her car, angry. There were other ways of dealing with it. You shouldn't deal with her. She's got an assaultive personality. I don't know about you, but I know that about her, based upon how she wants to train her child. You've got a lot of arrests here for assault and battery.
10 years ago, right? Before I even had a child.
Did you learn anything from it?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
What'd you learn?
I haven't been in trouble since I was...
Not you. What did you learn about assaulting people? That it usually doesn't solve anything.
It doesn't solve anything, but most of the times I was always assaulted first and then being pressed charged. Like Yolanda, she assaulted me and then went and got a peace order. You know what I mean? I'm always like the victim, because it's like I'm the victim. It is.
Listen to me.
I always get attacked, and then after I hit somebody back, I'm in
listen to
trouble.
me very, very carefully.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that your statement might have a little more credibility had you not taken your son back to beat up his little friend. That clearly indicates to me that you didn't learn. Violence and hitting people and fighting rarely accomplishes anything. Listen to me. That's what he told me you did. You walked him back there and said, be a man, do what you have to do. So he thinks that that's the right thing to do. It's not. It's not the way you solve problems.
Oh, you're right.
And he's going to get bigger. And when he gets older, when he turns to respond to somebody who he feels disrespected him, is to beat him up, he's going to say, I learned that from my mother. That's who I learned that. That's not a lesson. In any event, Miss Rancone.
Yes, ma'am.
We're coming back to you.
Yes, ma'am.
You went out there angry, and you went out there to hurt her. That was not the smart... Put your hand down! That was not a smart thing to do. And the claim is for $2,500 for medical bills. You have medical bills?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see them. And let me see the photographs.
Also, you can take a look at the bald spot here.
Big?
Yes, ma'am.
Big.
I cannot wear my hair up in a ponytail, down, nothing.
Any papers you want me to see of your injuries?
No, I just have a peace order, basically.
Can I see it, please?
In the police report, it states my face was scratched.
I know your face was scratched. No question in my mind your face was scratched. Somebody's always going to get the worst when you have a fight.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a trial with regard to this peace order?
No, ma'am.
Were you served with a copy of these papers?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to court?
Yes, we went to court on the 29th of December.
And at the hearing, the court found that you were at this location.
I don't know if it was at the location. All I know is the judge asked me to stay away from her and stay away from her kids, not to harass them.
So you're not supposed to go near her, her house, or her children?
Yes, ma'am.
I suggest you not.
I haven't been.
She has.
Since?
Yes.
I can ride through the neighborhood.
No, she
you
can't.
don't. Yes,
She's
I
barred.
can. I'm not
Just a
barred from
second.
that neighborhood.
Just a second.
How you can get barred from a place that people own them houses?
That's what they told me.
I'm not barred from there. If anything, you're barred from there from when you caught that drug charge when you were 16.
I have to make a judgment as to who precipitated this argument. You two have hot heads, but there's no question in my mind, Miss Rincon, that you went out there to fight with her. And that but for the fact that you left your house and went over to her car, there wouldn't have been any problem. None. And that you didn't go out there to have a civilized conversation with her. You were furious. You were furious because your daughters had, for a long period of time, told you that they were frightened, harassed, and hurt by her behavior. So you went out there to confront her. So you started this fight. So I am dismissing your counterclaim, and she's suing you for $2,500 for her pain and suffering and whatever else. And I think she has to be compensated, but I think she has to be compensated for a tenth of that because I think she brought a lot of it on herself. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $250. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out, ma'am, this way.
I'm a little upset. I feel I should have been compensated. My child should have been compensated for harassment, but you know, say la vie.
I think there was a poor judgment. She awarded me $250. That won't even pay for my hair weave.
Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Thank you, Bird.
You're welcome.
Ms. Kolzicki, Mr. Kowalski is your boyfriend, or was your boyfriend. According to what I read in your complaint, you knew him for a very brief period of time and became pregnant. Not much thought went into the creation of this family, and after you became pregnant, you decided to move in together and leased an apartment together. The defendant moved out of that apartment, according to you. It was his idea to move out. You weren't getting along, and you want him to be responsible for the remainder of the lease, at least his half of the remainder of the lease. Mr. Kowalski says that you argued, that you threw him out of the apartment. You told him to leave. Since you told him to leave, he's not paying you any rent. You also want him to pay for half the daycare, which he agreed to pay for, according to you. He says the daycare was your idea. He doesn't have any money for that. He has hard enough time keeping his head above water financially. What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a truck driver.
Truck drivers make very good money.
Sometimes.
Well, how much did you earn last year?
Oh, about $28,000.
You have anyone other than yourself that you're responsible to support?
No.
Well, you have this baby that you're going to be responsible to support. Do you support the baby?
I do.
How much do you send for the baby's support?
I don't give her any cash. I buy her what she needs.
Like what?
If she needs diapers, I take care of it. If she's going out and she needs a sitter, I take them. If she needs food, I buy it.
That's not good enough. That's very paternalistic and controlling. Do you understand what that means? That means that you give her a certain amount of money every week or every 2 weeks. That helps her pay for the rent, the heat, the electricity. You just live there, just the two of you live in the apartment?
I have an older son, too.
How old is that child?
12.
So then pays for the baby's share of all of those things. And then if there's money left over, you can buy the baby Pampers if you like. You can buy the baby toys if you like. You can buy the baby clothes if you like. But there are certain necessities that you have to pay for in U.S. currency. And there is a judge that you'll see soon, I gather, who's going to tell you that. Right?
Good.
Okay. You live in your apartment with your son.
2 sons, yep.
Who's 12?
Mm-hmm.
Does his father send support?
Every now and then, from October to December, he just did because I recently just took him back to court. That's why I'm not going through this again.
What do you mean you're not going through this again? What again?
I'm going to do this and take care of it in the beginning so I don't have any more problems as far as taking care of the child.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a job coach. I find physically challenged people jobs.
Who do you work for?
Southeast Works.
How long have you worked for them?
6 years.
How much do you earn?
$700 every 2 weeks.
What's the rent on the apartment?
$640.
When did you move into the apartment?
June of 2004.
You moved in together?
Mm-hmm. And Your Honor, if I may, he says that he has given me money whenever.
I've just tried to explain to him.
Yeah,
Whether
because
he
that's
understood
not
it or
true.
not or appreciates it or not is not my problem because next month somebody in authority at another jurisdiction is going to tell him the same thing. You do understand that, Mr. Kowalski, don't you?
I took care of the house fine when I lived there. She threw me out. She can pay for it.
Mr. Kowalski, she's going to get a child support order that's going to come out of your pay very soon. And you know why I know it's going to come out of your pay? Because she's going to take a transcript of these proceedings with her to family court. So a judge isn't going to wait until you miss your first 6 payments. The judge, in all probability, if he or she is smart, will issue a garnishment on your salary immediately so that a certain percentage of your salary will go towards defraying the cost of all of the expenses, including the rent. And we will get you a transcript of these proceedings because based upon what I hear from this gentleman, he is not going to be a willing participant in those proceedings. Who do you work for?
I work for a construction company.
You paid on the books or off the books?
On.
Social Security number?
What is mine?
Very easy. Slip in an income deduction order, but he's not paying for half the rent because he can't pay for half the rent and also pay for child support. Do you understand?
He hasn't been paying all along either. We've been keeping a tally on a book that when he did live there, you know, gas, electric, oh, just, you know, put it on there. Right now work is slow, you know, I'm laid off or whatever.
Those are choices that you make, madam.
I know.
You know, you have a job, you've been there for 6 years, you now have 2 children. You evidently did not make the right choice, nor did he, for a long-term partner. That's what happens. Now, on what date did he leave the apartment?
I would say November 12th.
That's a pretty good date. Now, you had a fight that day?
Sure. We have fights often.
No, November 12th. Did you have a fight?
Yes.
And you had been fighting previously to that? Did you tell him to leave?
I suggested to leave.
What did you say?
I said, you know, if you're so unhappy here, why don't you leave then? You know, and then of course he gets angry and he says, fine, I will. And
is that what happened?
No, it's not what happened at all.
Well, tell me what happened.
We were both going at it with each other, and she's arguing about money again, and because that's what it's always about with her.
Well,
she always
give me some money then.
Wants to try to keep up with the Joneses. She thinks she needs more. You know, she can't ever live on the level that she can afford. She always wants the next level higher.
Right.
You know, you need to give more. You need to do more. Go find a better job so I have more money.
Right.
It's always about money.
Shh. Don't speak. You won't be happy if you do. Go ahead. So that's what you were fighting about.
Right. And I told her that's the way it was. She's the one that agreed. She said, I got laid off. I had a very good job at the beginning of last year, and I got laid off due to company downsizing.
Yeah, fired.
And
one more time and you're out of here.
When I got laid off.
Just a second. Look at my eyes. One more time and you're out of here.
Okay.
What happened on November 12th?
This
you
is
were
what I'm
fighting
getting
about
to.
money and...
And I reminded her. I said, you're the one that told me that you were going to pick up the slack until something better came along. I said, now it's a different story. Now that money's tight and things are getting hard, you can't handle it. And, you know, the word of me leaving came up, and I said, if that's what you want, fine.
And she said?
And she said fine as well.
Well, it sounds to me it was almost mutual, but this is not something where he just walked out, you were fighting. That's not a good thing for your 12-year-old son. It's not a good thing for you. Now let's go on to the daycare. Did you promise to pay half the daycare?
No.
How was she supposed to work if nobody was there to help watch your baby?
Because we had a sitter when he was first born, and the sitter was very well priced, and there was an incident that caused us to lose that sitter.
How much was the sitter?
Probably about $50 a week.
Is that how much the sitter was? Just answer.
No, it was
How
60.
much was the sitter?
60.
$60 a week. Now, did you say you were going to pay for half the sitter?
I was helping her pay for the sitter.
Not helping her. This is your baby. This isn't some pet she's taking care of, sir. This is your son. Either I was paying part of it, or I was paying half of it, or I wasn't paying for it at all. But not I was helping her pay for it. This is your responsibility. You got to understand that. Is that coming through?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She shouldn't have thrown me out.
Says ex-fiancé Paul Kowalski owes for their son's daycare fees.
Let us assume that the sitter $1 a week. When did you leave?
November.
So we have 5 months, and let's say 4 weeks in a month is 20 weeks. Half of the $60 would be $30 a week, right? Is my math right?
Sure.
Or $600. Now, how much of the $600 did you give her? According to you, if my memory is correct, nothing since November, right? Diapers, Pampers, Huggies, whatever. No cash. So I don't need the incident with the babysitter. It's really not relevant. I'm taking your figure. Isn't that fair? I'm asking you whether you think that's fair. Mr. Kowalski, I'm prepared for you to say to me, I don't think that's fair.
I don't think it is.
Well, explain to me why, sir.
Because I was helping her pay for that sitter, and then she lost that sitter, and then we ended up having to put him into a daycare facility, and the daycare facility was considerably more.
I'm not asking you to pay for that, sir. I'm taking your figure. The babysitter, the cheaper babysitter. I'm cutting it in half. Since you left, you've paid nothing. So why don't you think that that's fair?
Because she shouldn't have thrown me out. I take care of my son just fine.
She shouldn't have thrown you out.
Just
You
because
just told
times
me-
are tough in a relationship doesn't mean you throw somebody to the curb.
No, Mr. Kowalski, I think that when you are the mother of 2 children, and one of them is an older child, 12 years old, that child doesn't have to live in a house full of tension. I'm not saying she's right. I would have known you a little bit longer before I decided to start a new family with you, irrespective of who's right and who's wrong in this argument, because I quite frankly don't care about it. You want to know if you made a good match, you go on Dr. Phil. I couldn't care less. All I'm saying to you is, having a child has certain responsibilities. This is your only child?
Yes.
Good. And you said to me, I agreed to pay for half the babysitter. But then we lost the babysitter because I assumed you were going to tell me, if you were going to tell me the whole story, that it was something she did. I don't care. What I'm saying to you is you had no right to be out of the house and not pay money, cash, U.S. currency, dollars. So you are responsible for half of what you agreed to pay, which is half of the original babysitter, which would come to $600. Does that sound fair to you?
Sure.
He doesn't say that with much gusto, and quite frankly, I don't give a rat's behind whether he thinks it's fair or not. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Kelly Rubin is suing pet sitter Libby Roberts for losing her Siberian Husky while she was on vacation.
Miss Rubin, you hired the defendant to dog sit for you. You were going on vacation?
I did.
And came back from vacation, no dog.
No dog.
Miss Roberts says that's not her fault. The dog was in the backyard. Somebody must have maliciously let the dogs out. What kind of a dog do you have?
It's a Siberian Husky.
How
Purebred
old?
Siberian Husky. She was 13 months when this happened.
How old was she when you got her?
8 weeks old.
Where did you get her from?
Black Hawk, Colorado.
Where do you live?
I am from New York, and now I live in Denver.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Thank you.
How did you find Miss Roberts as a pet sitter?
I put up an ad on Craigslist in a time bomb.
What's
restraint.
Craigslist for those of us who are functionally illiterate with the internet?
Craigslist is a website that you can post things, you can sell things, you can
Let me
find
see the ad
things.
that you put in.
Normally, Your Honor, I would put her in a shelter the time that I looked.
Okay. What kind of dog do you have?
I have a Weimaraner.
Okay. Brought the dog on the 21st?
I did.
So what happened?
Me and my husband and my children, we went to the store, and I put the dogs out in the backyard. And I've got a full backyard, fully fenced in, garage, 6-foot fence, and it comes up the side of the house. And there's 2 gates. There's one in the front and there's one in the back. We'd gone to the store. We were gone for only like an hour. And we came back, and the front gate was open, and both the dogs were gone. After I dropped off my husband, the groceries and everything, and we went out, I went out by myself, rather, looking for both dogs. Because mine's super friendly. He'll just go to anybody. Mika was a little bit timid.
Your dog ultimately came back.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Roberts, you want to explain to me why you think you are not responsible to Miss Rubin for her dog?
My gate is, my yard is completely secure. Somebody
Well,
else.
it's not secure.
Somebody else let them out, and
There's no lock on the gate.
no, ma'am, I cannot lock the gate because there are tenants above me, and the only way they can access their house is through the gates. I can't lock them.
So
They were not.
Just a second. So, Miss Roberts, in order to get in to the tenant's house, they have to open up the gate and
Yes,
go
ma'am.
in.
But they were not living there at the time. They had not been there for a few weeks.
Well, then why wasn't it locked?
My landlord won't allow me to lock it, period.
Well, then you should have left the dogs inside.
That's right. That's right.
If you have a gate that is unlocked and you want to place your dog at risk of somebody negligently leaving the gate open, that's your prerogative.
I've never had any other problems with somebody opening
Well,
the
you
gate
have
or
a problem
anything.
now. Now, you took on the responsibility and you have to do what is necessary to almost ensure that this dog is returned safely.
And I tried to...
I know, you went looking for it, you took time off from work, you're very sad that it happened, I don't think that you did it purposely. But here, you knew that that gate is unlocked. Both gates, there are 2 gates.
Yes, ma'am.
Someone could have inadvertently left it open. Do you have children?
Yes, but they were with me. And
Do
they were both
you have-
closed at the time.
Just a second. But you have children. Maybe one of the children went in the back and instead of closing it all the way, left it open a little bit so it blew open. You never know what happens. All you know is that you took a responsibility for her dog. She no longer has custody of her dog. I assume you posted notices all over.
Oh, yeah.
I assume so. Dog is beautiful. And if it's any comfort, probably in a very good home someplace, somebody found her. Did she have a collar on?
No, ma'am.
Why
No
not?
collar.
Because when I was at Miss Rubin's house and stuff like that, she never had a collar on. And I don't put a collar on my dog either unless I'm walking around.
When Miss
public.
Rubin brought the dog to your house, did she bring it with a collar or without?
I had a collar and a leash because I went to Miss Rubin's house and picked the dog up.
When you brought the dog back, did Miss Rubin give you a collar with an identification tag?
I don't know if it had a tag on it, but she did have a collar and a leash.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Also, in my apartment...
Did the collar have a tag on it?
2.
And if you're leaving the dog outside, at least if the dog had a collar, there would be some indication of how to get in touch with the owner. If you chose to leave your dog without that kind of protection, you had no right to leave her dog without that kind of protection. How much did you pay for the dog?
I paid $400 for the dog.
Your Honor, she told me she paid $500 for the dog. And her parents told me the same thing. Because her parents, and her mom, her dad, and her brother all called me the day she was flying back, saying that it's my fault. I ruined Christmas. They accused me of selling the dog on the black market.
No,
I mean, ridiculous things.
I certainly hope that you didn't do that, Miss Roberts.
Oh, no.
This dog was my daughter. It was my family away from home. I'm from New York.
Miss
She
Rubin,
was my best friend.
Miss Rubin, you are certainly the cost of your dog, vet bills, damages, in some measure. Ms. Roberts did not take adequate care of your dog. But I'm going to suggest this to you. If this dog was your home away from home, your life, I would not entrust it to somebody that I met for a second on the internet.
Great false judgment.
You
Huge
did.
false judgment.
That's not suggesting to you it's your fault, but I'm just telling you in the future, you don't place a child that you have in the care of someone that you find on the internet, and you don't place a pet that you love and that's your life and your home away from home with somebody that you never met before, because you don't know anything about her judgment. I mean, worst comes to worst, you cancel your trip. That's your alternative. If you can't find anybody to take care of your baby, you cancel the trip. So if the kennels are full, you cancel your trip. But you don't place that, you're shaking your head, but you don't let the dog be in the company of someone who was not responsible or who you would think maybe sold your dog on the black market, right? If you could think that, that suggests to me you didn't do what we call in the law a due diligence. You didn't check up enough. You didn't say to her, well, Miss Roberts, have you ever done dog sitting before? Please give me the name of a reference so that I can check, right?
Right.
You said, well, I want to go home for the holidays. I found somebody who's prepared to take care of her. Here's $20 a day. Goodbye. Not using your noodle. All right. No. Paid $400, Miss Roberts. I don't know why you would say her parents said she paid $500, probably the tax and food and everything else. She had vet bills and everything else. I'm sure, having pets myself, I know how much that costs.
I have the vet bills, too.
How much did they come to?
$432.58.
That's pretty reasonable.
I was on a wellness plan.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $832. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. 50 on the calendar in the matter of Towler versus Cherry. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Ms. Towler, you have 2 children. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
And the defendant provided for daycare for your 2 children for some time. It is your claim that she terminated without giving you proper notice, and you want a whole host of damages from her. And Ms. Cherry says that you're a real nut, and she had every right to terminate the services early.
Yes, Your Honor.
When did she start providing care for your children?
She provided services for my son, who's 2, on August the 24th, 2005. And in November, she started providing services for my younger son, who at the time was 6 months old.
And when did the services terminate?
I believe December the 14th, 2005.
And it is conceded that there is a 2-week notice requirement. Is that right?
That's right, Your Honor.
When did you give that 2-week notice?
December the 23rd, 2005.
And then subsequently you told her not to bring the children back at all.
1 week.
So that's what she's really talking about, that you terminated the services without giving her the proper 2 weeks notice. Am I correct?
In addition, as far as we didn't have our security deposit returned to us, and some 2 days of services that she had already been paid for that she did not keep.
But you also want additional money because you say that you had to find other daycare and you had a problem with your job, so you want some punitive damages.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, let's deal with the easy things first. Security deposit. How much was the security deposit?
She only paid for the infant $100, was supposed to have been $200.
Okay, and for the older child?
$150.
And then she prepaid a week.
That's correct.
The children were only there for 2 days.
They were there for 3 days.
3 days. So far, $390 are the monies that she has expended that she will get back. Now we're going to talk about the punitive damages for what you claim are damages that she should be responsible for breaching the contract and terminating your children early. And she says that she had good cause to do that, so that the ball is going to be in her court to explain to me what her good cause was to terminate early. Go ahead.
She was, how can I put this? She wasn't pleased with what I was doing, evidently. So I said, Yetunde, why don't you find another daycare?
There was no episode?
Other than the fact that she called Child Protective Service on me.
When did she call Child Protective Services on you?
I would have to say maybe December the 22nd.
So immediately before. Did you call Child Protective Services?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, Your Honor, but the dates are inaccurate because the incident took place on December the 14th.
Well, why don't you tell me what happened that precipitated all this trouble?
Sure, Your Honor. On December the 5th, when I went to go pick up my children, it had been snowing. There was approximately maybe 3 to 4 inches of snow. I had on shoes where my feet were out in the back. So rather than walk around back and possibly fall with my children, one who's in an infant carrier, which I would have to hold, and the other is a 2-year-old, which I would have to hold going up 7 or 8 cement steps. To prevent that from happening, I knocked on the front door. Her policy is the daycare entrance and exit is around back. So regardless of the situation, you have to walk around back. I didn't.
Listen, you're supposed to walk in the back through the daycare. You didn't walk through the back because you were wearing the wrong shoes. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So you went in the front door, and what happened?
Yeah, I went in the front door. Her husband opened the door and said the daycare's around back, and I explained to him about the shoes, and I just kept on going downstairs to the daycare to pick my children up, and I talked to her about safety.
Just a second. So the husband said to you, you have to go around back.
Right.
You said, I'm not going around back because I'm not wearing the right shoes.
Right.
And you just walked past him and walked downstairs.
That's correct.
All right, good. So you got downstairs, and what happened?
Well, picked up my children without incident, no problem, and then took them to the car, and I believe she may have walked out. Maybe she had another child. I can't really remember, but I do remember having a conversation before I pulled off, and I simply...
What kind of conversation?
It was regarding safety issues, because I felt that she should have shoveled her walkway, and I told her it was unsafe to do that, and then she asked me, well, that's what I have insurance for, or you can wear boots. I thought that was inappropriate. And after that, and then she did suggest maybe if I wasn't happy that I could find another daycare provider. And, she also told me that none of her other parents had a problem with it.
Fine. So she told you, listen to me, she told you at that time, if you're not satisfied with the service and you feel as if it's dangerous, go find someplace else.
Right.
Okay. What happened next?
I asked her who was her licensing specialist, and she threatened me like, well, if you contact my licensing specialist, then you can expect a 2 weeks notice.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Right, so...
Well, just a minute. Does that sound unfair to you?
Well, it felt like a threat.
What, that you were going to call the license provider?
No, she was saying...
I'm speaking.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That she hadn't shoveled her walk. You were going to call her license provider. You didn't think that was a threat. But her statement to you that if you do that, you're going to get a 2-week notice, you felt that was a threat. I just want to make sure that we understand each other.
That's...
All right, let's go further. What happened next?
Okay, so we had our discussion. We left on good terms. Good night.
You didn't leave on good terms.
Okay.
You left on bad terms.
Okay.
If you threatened to call the people who could close up my business because you were wearing slingback shoes in the snow, I would not be a happy person with you. Your kids went to the daycare from the 5th to the 14th.
That's correct. We paid, no problem.
Go ahead.
Okay, December 14th, around 5:30, 5:45, I go around back and pick up my children. I noticed after a few minutes that my older son has a stinky diaper on him. I simply asked Miss Cherry if she can change him. She goes into this mental breakdown state on me, snapping out in front of another parent.
What did she say to you?
I had given Yetunde, her son, he was clean, he had his coat on. Same for the infant. I had just finished feeding the infant a burping, so on the way home, the infant wouldn't be irritable, wouldn't be hungry.
Just tell me what happened.
And so what actually happened was, it was 6:05, 6:06 at the time. I'm trying to close my daycare, trying to get out to take my 2 children to karate class. She had lots of time, ample time to take her children out of the daycare and going home. She chose to linger and hang around and hang around.
How long did she linger?
She was there at 5:45. She didn't decide to leave. I had to start actually cleaning up.
Just a second. What time did you arrive there?
It was close to about 6 o'clock. I'm sorry, between about 5:45, 5:50, because I commute.
Fine.
Okay.
And what time were you actually ready to walk out the door?
Should have been.
Noticed this diaper problem.
Maybe around 6 o'clock. It wasn't even 6 o'clock yet, because she looked at the clock and said...
So 15 minutes later.
Right.
What time are you supposed to pick him up?
She closes at 6 o'clock. Matter of fact, she was waiting on another parent to get there, so she couldn't close until the other parent got there. Matter of fact, the other parent came in and witnessed the whole incident. The other parent was there before 6 p.m.
So at 6 o'clock, as you're ready to walk out the door, you notice that your child has a soiled diaper.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Why didn't you change him?
Because she's a daycare provider.
You're his mother.
Yeah, and I pay her $1,400 a month. I thought that's the least she could do.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I didn't realize that was going to send her into a tailspin. So I contact 911. She's like, go ahead, contact 911.
I would have told you not to bring him back that day. I wouldn't have waited 24 hours.
And later today,
what time did the golf cart end up in the lake, sir?
3 o'clock or so.
provider Kathy Cherry terminated their contract without notice. Yetunde says Kathy won't return the unused portion of her fee.
So you handed it back to the child and said, change him.
No, I didn't say that.
So, in effect, you handed her back the child and said, change him.
I asked her, did she mind changing his diaper, and I didn't realize that was...
There isn't a question in my mind that you didn't say that to her, madam.
Well, I have a witness, unfortunately, but she's not here.
You know what my witness is? My witness is all the years that I've lived on this earth. And anybody who would say to somebody who's closing up their business, who's been standing around for 15 minutes and notices that their child now has a dirty diaper, you take the child over in a corner, you take out a diaper and you change him. You don't say, you change him, you're still on the clock. Keep going. So far, I'm beginning to agree with this defense. Go ahead.
Okay, so I asked her to change my son, and she does. She changes him, but then on her way over to the table, she becomes all emotional, screaming, hollering, and yelling, and that was totally inappropriate. I didn't understand what this whole escapade was about over a diaper. I didn't realize that was going to send her into a tailspin. So I contact 911. She's like, go ahead, contact 911. I call 911 because her behavior is becoming volatile and hostile, and she's doing this in front of younger children.
So you called 911 on your cell phone?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And after you called 911, you continued to take your children back to this daycare?
No, that was the final day. They never came back after that day.
After you called 911, she terminated your children early, and that's your complaint?
No, she didn't terminate until the next day.
The next day she terminated them?
She called my house
which was
at
a week early.
6:27, right.
And said, don't bring them back.
In essence, yes. She
I would have told you not to bring them back that day. I wouldn't have waited 24 hours. I mean, I don't understand where your head is at. You pick up a phone and you call 911. You're alleging that the person who's taking care of your 2 infant children is acting in an irresponsible, irrational way. And what you're telling me is that if she hadn't terminated your children, you would have taken them back to school the next day? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not telling you that.
Well, I'm asking you. Let's get the lawsuit clear so that you understand the 4 corners of this lawsuit right now. Do you understand?
Yes.
You have a disagreement with the daycare provider. As a result of that, by the way, I believe that that was as a result of your bad behavior. In any event, you call the police, which is an emergency.
Right.
And then you're telling me that despite that, you would have taken your children back to her daycare the next day to complete the week.
I'm not telling you that at all.
Then you cannot sue her, madam, for early termination.
Well, she had a 2 weeks notice, and it was termination she has right here that it was to be effected on December the 23rd.
Well, I've got to tell you something. I would have terminated you that day. I find that your conduct was at least not particularly motherly, and at worst, brave. First of all, if there's 2 or 3 inches of snow outside, you're not supposed to be walking around with slingback shoes. And if you're supposed to go in one entrance to a house and the owner of the house says, you know, you're supposed to go around the back and you push past them, I would have called the police and charged you with trespass, because that's not what you're supposed to do. And when you pick up your child and you linger in daycare, and between the time you get there and the time you're supposed to leave, he soils his diaper, you fix it. The fact that you paid her $1,400 a month to take care of your children doesn't preclude you from being a reasonable person. So you're going to get your $390 because that's your security deposit, and that's for the 2 days that you paid that you didn't get. As far as punitive damages are concerned, it's a good thing she didn't file a counterclaim. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I mean, like she said to...
Step forward.
23-year-old golf course manager Stephen Van Burgess is suing golfer 21-year-old Bobby Gore for driving one of his golf carts into a water hazard.
Mr. Burgess, according to your complaint, you manage a golf course.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Gore was playing on that course. He had rented a golf cart. According to you, the electric golf cart ended up in a lake and was destroyed. You want him to pay for it. Mr. Gore says it malfunctioned. It was an accident, probably as a result of a pedal that's stuck, and was not his fault. Who owns this golf cart? This golf cart, and who owns the golf course?
Bill owns the course.
Okay. You have authorization to proceed on his behalf?
Yes.
Let me see the papers that you have. And what date did this occur?
November the 1st, 2005.
Okay. You're listed as the complainant in the incident report. What time did the golf cart end up in the lake, sir?
I think it was around about 3 o'clock or so.
3 p.m. Who were you playing golf with?
One of my buddies, Dennis.
What time had you started?
We were on the 11th hole, so I guess it was around 12, about noon, we started golfing.
When did you have lunch?
We eat before we came to the course.
Were you drinking, Mr. Gore?
No, ma'am.
Had you had anything of an alcoholic nature to drink that day?
No, ma'am.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure is not an answer, Mr. Gore. When I ask you a question, you give me an honest answer.
No, ma'am.
You had nothing to drink that day. How did the golf cart end up in the lake?
The golf cart has been malfunctioning all day. We've been, the gas pedal's been acting up. We got to the back 9, shot the 10th hole. On the 11th hole, we teed off. My ball was in front of the water. My buddy was on the green. I was facing away from the water. I hit my ball over the water, went to get back on the cart, and when I turned, the gas pedal got stuck. And I was doing a U-turn since I was to get back onto the cart path, and it threw me off and went straight for the water. I had to jump back on to get my clubs and my friend's cell phone and everything else.
All right, let me hear.
His initial claim was it just got stuck. He never said it, didn't get stuck sitting down there, or if it had been malfunctioning all day, why didn't he change when
Could have done a lot of things,
number 9?
Could have done a lot of things, but I've driven in golf carts. Sometimes, especially if they're older, especially if they're older, they have a tendency to stick. Those pedals don't always work. They constantly feel as if you're constantly jerking forward in them. How old was this golf cart?
4 or 5 years.
So it gets plenty of use, so it wasn't new.
Right.
It's an accident. You're lucky he didn't sue you. Why are you suing him?
We had both talked to him when he got done, and we both smelled alcohol on him, and we just felt like he had been, acted irresponsible.
He wasn't intoxicated. There's no indication in the police reports that he was intoxicated.
The officer just let him go.
There was not an indication in the police report that he was intoxicated. Now, if he had something to drink that day, that means that he's telling me a fib if he had a beer or two. But there is nothing in the police report that indicates that he was intoxicated.
Right. But
has this ever happened to you before, that a golf cart has been damaged?
It has happened before, but not like this.
Has it happened before?
Yes.
With vandalism.
Shh. And what's happened when it's happened before?
We had a case where it was actually 2 different cases. Guys would come out at night and steal the golf carts.
I'm not talking about stealing the golf courses, sir. I'm talking about using the golf carts in the normal course of their operation and having them malfunction.
No, Your Honor.
Never happened?
Never.
No.
Really?
Not at our golf course.
Well, that's real interesting. It happened once. It happened this time.
Right.
But you have a heavy burden if you're going to have to demonstrate to me that the golf cart ending up in the lake was as a result of his doing rather than a result of the gas pedal sticking.
Well, he indicated that it had been malfunctioning all day.
Yes, he did.
Which he never indicated that to us.
Should have.
But then he gets to a hole where it's downhill toward the water and it ends up in the lake.
That's what you have insurance for.
Which they do not have.
You don't have insurance for these golf carts?
Can I say something?
Just no. Do you have insurance or don't you have insurance?
We do.
So why don't you use it?
We just felt it was his responsibility.
Do you have a contract that he signs when he takes the golf cart out?
No, Your Honor.
So he hasn't accepted responsibility. You just gave him the golf cart. He assumes that it's working. And if the brakes went, if the gas went, and he was facing downhill, and he didn't use good judgment and not turning it in right away, doesn't mean he's responsible for it going in the water, unless he was drunk, because then I could find that his intoxication was the proximate cause of this. But there's no indication that he was drunk.
There's actually a policeman that came out there and talked to us and said nothing about me being drunk. I talked right to the police. He smelled beer on me. Then why didn't the police smell beer on me,
The officer just said not his responsibility. He was just there to talk to me because I wanted to file the claim.
Right.
The police report and told him he could go.
Listen to me. I'm talking about somebody who's so drunk that an officer might ticket him for public intoxication. That's not the case because it says in the police report, sir, that you insisted on filing a complainant. That was you. Demanded a report be taken.
Right.
Police officer comes out at the time. But if he sees that he's drunk and you say that he's drunk, which is no indication of in here, it would have been recorded. And it isn't. So it's an accident. Put it through to your insurance and leave me alone. Goodbye. Your case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Time on the calendar, the matter of Parker versus Elliott. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Ms. Parker, it is your claim that the defendant owes you for bail.
Yes.
Defendant acknowledges that you posted bail for him. I think it was $300.
Yes.
But he says it was your fault that he got arrested in the first place.
Yes.
So why don't you explain to me the circumstances surrounding this arrest, Ms. Parker?
Okay, it all started on February 18th of this year. We were at a club in Allen Park, Michigan, and the defendant met me up there, basically. I knew he was going to be up there. So we were getting ready to leave, and a fight broke out.
Fight broke out that had nothing to do with the two of you?
Nothing, no. So when I went up to the counter to get my coat, they didn't have it. So I was hollering at the girl who works in the coat check.
Why were you hollering at her?
Because she didn't have my coat.
Did you think she stole it?
Well, I thought she gave it away.
By mistake?
Well, I have a ticket that, goes with the ticket that they put on the coat, so I didn't understand, how...
All right, let's go back. Ms. Parker, You go to get your coat and you give the coat check person your ticket.
Yes.
And what does she do?
She says she doesn't have it.
Well, first she goes to look for it.
Oh, yes. She goes to look for it.
Just a second. And she goes to look for it. And how long is she gone?
Not even a minute.
And comes back and says,
I don't have your coat.
Just like that. I don't have your coat.
Yes.
And what did you say to her?
I said, why? How you don't have my coat? This is mandatory coat check. Y'all make this mandatory for me to check my coat and you don't have my coat?
And she said to you?
Nothing. She walked away and started to help someone else. And I was hollering extremely loud.
What were you saying?
Why y'all don't have my coat?
You mean you were cursing?
Yes.
At her?
Yes.
So then what happened?
So that's when it was another girl on the side of me doing the same thing because they didn't have her coat also.
A girl that you didn't know?
Well, I knew her also. And that's when a police officer walked in.
Isn't there a manager at this club?
Well, he wasn't there at the time.
Just answer my questions. Isn't there a manager at this club?
Not that I know of.
You mean the coat check girl manages the club?
I'm not sure who manages the club.
Well, it would seem to me, Miss Parker, that your recourse, if the coat check person doesn't have your coat, is to excuse yourself like a lady and go to the manager's office and say, is there a manager here who is in charge? I have a ticket for my coat, and they gave away my coat. Would you either come and look for it, because this girl seems to be ignoring me, or do something? You chose not to do that. You chose to stand there and with at least one other person create a scene, right?
Yes.
Were you drunk?
Yes.
Oh, well, you left that out, but I'm glad you told me the truth. So you were drunk and creating a scene?
Yes.
All right, and where was Sir Lancelot while you were doing that?
Well, I think it was like standing behind me somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where he was.
Is that right, Mr. Elliott?
No, I wasn't exactly behind her.
Were you there in the area?
I was there in the area.
Can you describe to me her condition when she was screaming profanities at this
She was heavily intoxicated.
misfortunate woman behind the coat check?
She was heavily intoxicated. Her and her friend that were being belligerent towards the coat check people. They were just out of control. I was trying to get them to calm down, and that didn't happen.
How were you trying to?
Doing them, just telling them to wait. You know, maybe they have a ticket. You know, at the end when everybody leave, you can talk to somebody and try to get your coat. But they weren't listening.
Because they were?
They were drunk. They were intoxicated.
So then some police officers came in. Is that right?
Yes. Well, I wasn't there when the police officers came. I was talking to them, and a friend had recognized me from high school. So I went to go talk to her like 5 minutes. Okay.
So you left them screaming at the coat check?
I just left them there.
I would have too.
Yeah, so I come back after 5 minutes of talking to her. Erica, Miss Parker, she's on the floor in handcuffs, okay? Her friend is behind the coat check counter fighting with the coat check people. You know, they got her all over the counter and everything, and, she just, it was crazy.
Out of control.
Out of control. So I go over to the coat check counter. I'm telling Marilyn, which is her friend, I'm saying, calm down, Marilyn, it's going to be okay, But she was just out of control. Nothing I can do. So she couldn't do anything because she was in restraint. She was on the floor. All she could do was talk, and she was just cussing and everything, It wasn't nothing you could really say to her. So I tried to kneel down and talk to her. And a police officer was standing behind me and said, you can't talk to her. I said, just give me 1 minute. I just want to figure out where they're going. So he said, okay. I kneeled down and I talked to her, as long as I could. Then all of a sudden, the police officer come over there to me and says, boom, slap me in handcuffs. You can talk to her all night now. And I go to jail. And I go to jail. They say on my ticket right here, interfering with police duty,
Well.
What the police officer told me, the reason I was being arrested was because they was tired of Club Utopia, and I happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's what he told me blatantly in the car while I was going to jail.
Yeah, well.
There wasn't a criminal charge. He didn't tell me I was interfering or I was being disorderly, which I wasn't. I didn't cuss at the police officers. I didn't swear or anything. I just couldn't believe I was going to jail.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She was drunk, disorderly.
Claims ex-boyfriend Omar Elliott owes for bail money. Omar says he was arrested because of Erica's conduct during a night of partying.
Mr. Elliott, I agree with you, sir. But I don't agree with you that it's her fault you got arrested. It's your fault you got arrested. She was drunk, disorderly, laying on the floor in handcuffs, swearing, which is exactly where I would have left her. Her friend, the same place, and walked away with this other girl that you just met from high school.
Well, they were my friends. I was kind of concerned about those.
Well, then that's what happens. When you lay down and swill, sometimes you get dirty.
Right.
However, your friend's boyfriend came down and bailed all three of you out. Is that right?
No, he didn't get out. They wouldn't allow him to get out because he had a warrant in Dearborn, so he couldn't leave.
Oh, so who paid for him to get out?
I paid for him to get out the next day.
Okay. Tell me how that came about.
Okay. The next morning, he calls me, and Omar says, you pay $300 to bail me out, and I promise I'll pay you as soon as you get out. In fact, I'll even pay you $400. He says...
Did you say that to her?
I don't recall. I was a little groggy that morning.
You don't? Oh, so you were drunk, too?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Oh, Mr. Elliott. Well, if you don't recall, she does, sir. this case just became much easier.
But she also called my voicemail and told me, because she was leaving derogatory messages on my phone and everything, because I didn't answer my phone.
She was leaving derogatory messages on your phone, Mr. Elliott. She says that you called her and asked her to bail you out of... Speak. Mouth moving. Okay. You called her and you promised to pay her, she says. You told her you would pay back $400. When I asked you, you said, I don't remember. I was a little groggy. So that makes my job as a fact finder very easy. She says she remembers. You say you don't remember.
Okay. She also called my phone after we were arguing and stuff. She also called me and left me a message and told me, oh, I love you. I don't want this money to come between us. You know what? I'm not even going to call you no more about the money. It doesn't even matter. You know, I don't want this to become between our relationship that we have. She also called me and told me that.
You have that message with you?
I don't have it, but that's what she said.
Well, I don't love you, Mr. Elliott. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $300. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, I'm flattered. I'm glad because I needed my money.
It wasn't Jessup. Step forward.
28-year-old Lisa Smith is suing her sister, Shannon Jessup, for a loan to buy a van and another loan to repair it.
Ms. Smith, the defendant is your sister. You claim 2 loans to her. While your sister acknowledges that initially you made these 2 kind loans to her, one was for a used car and the other was to have the used car fixed up so that I guess she could get to and from work or wherever she had to go. She says that you reached an agreement, and the agreement was that you got some sort of a bonus when she was hired full-time at the place where you work.
Yes.
And that bonus exceeded the amount of the loan, and you agreed to cancel the loan because of the bonus. She said that the only reason you're coming after her for this money now is because the 2 of you had some sort of an argument and a falling out. Right? Okay. Tell me, in what month and year did you make these loans for the car and repairs?
It was in September of 2004.
Okay, and we acknowledge that those were loans that were supposed to be paid back?
Yes.
All right. And when were you supposed to pay them back, Ms. Jessup?
When I got my taxes, 2006.
What about taxes 2005?
We were moving. We had just moved back to South Carolina, and we were getting our own apartment, so she said we could wait until 2006 when we had gotten moved in. And
is that right?
No, ma'am. My understanding was that it was going to be 2005 tax season.
That doesn't sound right. That may be in your head that you wanted it to be 2006, Ms. Jessup. Don't try to get over on me because you're not going to be able to do that. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So in September of 2004, when she made the loan, you said to her, when I get my income tax refund, I'll give you the money.
That's correct.
After all these years, there are still some that say you're supposed to be able to get over in a courthouse. All right. So it's supposed to be paid back in April 2005, on or about, whenever you got your tax return refund. Okay. What happened in April 2005?
Well, we had just moved into a place, and I was under the understanding that it was going to be 2006.
You mean you asked her for an extension?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, did you ask her for an extension?
I was under the understanding.
Don't tell me what your impression was. Use your words. Did you call up your sister and say, I can't give you your money back now because I don't have the money? Could you wait a little longer? Did she say that to you?
I don't recall her doing that. I believe that she probably assumed that I would give her an extension because at the time we were not arguing.
Fine.
And
so that was her assumption.
Yeah.
When did you get her a job with your company?
I got her a job in 2004, and basically
What year did she get you the job?
I thought it was 2005.
I got the job for her in 2004, but she was a temporary employee.
Okay.
And so until she went full-time, I wasn't entitled to the bonus. So actually...
So she started working there in September of 2004 part-time?
Yes, as a temp.
Okay. And when were you hired full-time?
August 2005.
Which entitled me to the bonus at that point, 6 months from that time.
After I've worked 6 months.
And it's $500. It's increased to $1,000 now, but I'm not entitled to the $1,000 because that started in January of this year. I'm only entitled to $500.
Okay.
And it's taxed like a paycheck.
Fine. So maybe it's worth about $350
Exactly.
after tax. Tell me the conversation that you claim you had with your sister, Miss Jessup, where she forgave this loan.
Well, we had a conversation.
Tell me when.
It was about August when I got hired on, that if I could just take it out of the hiring bonus, then I would only owe her $300.
You didn't say that in your answer.
Yes, and then it increased to $1,000 starting January. Any employee that's been employed for 6 months, they get $1,000.
She says she doesn't get $1,000 because it increased in January. You started to work in August of 2005. Show me the regulation where it says that she's going to be entitled to it.
I checked with HR, and I don't. I get $500.
I'm sure she does. Well, it's very clear, Miss Jessup. Don't you read? It says, effective January 1st, we are increasing our referral bonus from $500 to $1,000. The new rate is effective for applications received on or after January 1st, 2006. You were already working there.
Exactly.
Well, I thought it was for anybody that became an employee
Well,
after 6
I'm
months,
asking you.
2006.
Don't you read?
Yes, ma'am.
It says the new rate is effective for applications received on or after January 1st, 2006.
I guess I misunderstood what it had
I guess
said.
you did. Give it back to her, please.
In addition to that, Your Honor, we never had an agreement like that.
Absolutely not.
For me
Why
to,
would she make an agreement with you?
Yeah, because I needed...
Just a minute.
Well, at the time, we were not fighting. When we had talked about it, she said that was going to be fine.
No, I don't believe you. Miss Jessup. Nose is going to start to grow. You owe your sister $880, and you should say thank you.
I have said thank you many times. I watch her kid, whenever she asks me to, for free.
Well, of course, you have the child's aunt.
Well, I only get to see one of her kids, but...
Whatever.
I've helped her out lots of times.
Good. Did you ever help her out with money?
Not that I recall, no.
Did she ever help you out with things other than money?
No.
Never.
Got you a job.
Just a second. What about that?
She put my name in, but because of my hard work, I got the job.
Just a second. She put your name in. They didn't know about your hard work until after you worked there.
I went and applied at a temp agency that she told me that they hired through.
Whatever.
That was the extent of her giving me my job.
To employ her.
As my granddaughter would say, with attitude. Whatever. Say thank you and make up with your sister. You look like two nice girls. It's very sad that you're fighting. What were you fighting about?
It's a family disagreement.
Her boyfriend.
My boyfriend she doesn't like, and it's
treated her very, very badly.
Miss Jessup, listen to me. Listen to me. It's always a good idea to keep your nose out of other people's bedrooms. Listen to me.
I
No,
agree.
listen to me.
Thank
Don't
you.
try. Miss Jessup, it's very difficult, I'm sure, for a sister. It's very difficult for a parent. You worry about what's going on in your own backyard. And don't look into somebody else's bedroom and try to figure something out. So, what you're supposed to do as a good sibling is to be there and be supportive.
And I was.
No, no, no. Not judgmental. Supportive. Put your hand down. Put on your listening ears.
Yes, ma'am.
If your sister is, in your judgment, making a mistake with this guy, she probably is. Because more than 50% of the time, we do make mistakes. So she probably is. Miss Jessup, you have children?
Yes.
How many?
2, and 1 on the way.
And do they all have the same fathers?
Yes.
You had to think about that for a minute. I wouldn't have to think about that.
Well, one of them's my stepdaughter. We've had custody of since she was 3. My son is ours, but it's all the same dad.
Okay. So one is a stepchild, which means your husband made a mistake.
3.
3 mistakes. Well, and you married him anyway.
I did.
Well, so that says something about you. If I were your sister and I say, listen, he had 3 mistakes, right? You have a stepchild now that you're taking care of? 3 stepchildren that you're taking care of?
Oh, I take care of one, but the others come to visit.
Listen, I can imagine your sister saying, what are you, nuts? What are you,
But he
crazy?
treats me good. There's
Listen
a
to me.
difference.
Listen to me. You speak to his last 3 exes.
I do. They love me.
They love him?
No, they love me.
They may love you. Sure, they love you.
They don't like him.
Sure, they love you.
Yes,
So listen
see?
to me. So you see, people make mistakes.
I understand.
But what you're supposed to be is supportive. And if he doesn't treat her well, that's her problem. And eventually, she'll pick up, if that's true. But you're not supposed to be judgmental. You're supposed to hug each other and kiss each other and be supportive and pay her $880. Thank you. That's all.
Why is that excused? You may step out.
I am so glad that I'm finally going to get this money, and hopefully it's going to bridge a gap between me and my sister.
I guess it was fair.
Number 564 on the calendar in the matter of Buckingham Kelly versus O'Keefe. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Miss Buckingham, this is your daughter, I assume?
Yes, ma'am.
And this young man used to be her boyfriend.
Correct.
Your complaint, what are you laughing at?
Never dated, ma'am.
You bailed him out of jail.
Correct.
And you want him to pay you back.
Correct.
And Mr. O'Keefe says, thank you very much. He never asked you to bail him out. He doesn't know your dime.
Correct.
How did you know him? He's not related to you, right?
Right.
So, if he's not your daughter's boyfriend, why in the world would you bail him out of jail?
He called me crying from jail about
Well, how did you?
one night.
He didn't get your number randomly. How did you know him?
No, ma'am. He had an interest in my daughter, and we also worked together.
When does that mean?
They went out to dinner. She spent time at his place. He would come pick her up. They would go to the show.
Is that right?
Yes.
Did you think he was a boyfriend of yours?
We dated. We were seeing each other. You know, that's the impression that I got. We all worked together, and he was leaving me notes on my desk and things like that, you know.
What kind of notes was he leaving on your desk?
Just like, you look cute today, let's go out later, and like that was on a daily basis. I mean, to me it became pretty apparent that we were seeing each other. We were exclusive. I wasn't seeing anybody else. And
Did you have an intimate relationship with him?
No.
Well, maybe that's his problem, you see, because maybe he thinks that unless you have an intimate relationship with somebody, you can't call him a boyfriend. Is that what you think, sir?
Yeah, I never dated her.
Well, what does that mean?
Together.
What does a date mean to you? Did you take her? Listen,
Dating to me is...
Look at me. I'll ask you questions better, and then maybe I'll let you talk. Did you take her out for dinner?
No, we never went out for dinner.
Did you take...
He did. Multiple times he took me out to dinner.
Refresh his recollection. Maybe he has short-term memory loss. Where did you go for dinner?
The time when the place, there was a seafood place, it was closed, and then we went down, we went to Ponderosa, it was the only place that was open.
And we went and saw a movie together. With her?
The Ponderosa we went to during a work get-together.
How many people went?
At least 10 to 12.
Nobody was there. Okay. Except me and him, and every place was closed, and our work gets off at 4. No place was open. They were like one of the only places we had to go.
So he didn't think you were having a relationship, but you thought you were having a relationship, and you all worked together.
Correct.
So he called you crying from jail. When?
It was March 29th, 10:30 that evening. He had not showed up for work for several days. We all at work had become concerned that he had not called in.
Where did you work?
For a high school advertising agency in Crown Point.
Did you call her at 10:30 at night on the 29th of March?
I did, Your Honor.
What did you say to him, and what did he say to you?
He was crying. He was upset. He said, I've been arrested. I wrecked my motorcycle. You've got to help me. You've got to get me out of jail. I can't get a hold of my mother. I can't get a hold of my father. I did know his parents were divorced based on the relationship he had with my daughter. And he said he needed help. He needed bailed out of jail. He thought it would be about $4,500. He asked me if I could help him. He was concerned about losing his job and therefore losing his apartment. And he gave me his Social Security number, his father's name, and his attorney's name, and asked me to please call and please help him and bail him out.
Did you have his Social Security number?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
Would you like for me to read it to you?
I would.
It is 51.
And he gave it to you on the phone on the 29th of March?
Yes, ma'am.
Incorrect.
Okay. Shh. I'll get to you. Did you try calling his attorney?
I left his attorney a voicemail. By this time, it was about 11 p.m., and my daughter and I went to the police station, got a bail bondsman, which I have...
on the 29th?
Yes, ma'am. I have his business card here, along with the bail bonds.
How much did you have to give the bail bondsman?
$4,500.
Okay.
Mr. O'Keefe had told me on the phone that he thought the bond would be about $450 for 2 unpaid traffic tickets. After I put the $4,500 on my Visa card, I found out there was forgery charges, there was driving while suspended, resisting arrest, theft. And I knew none of that before I put the money on my credit card and the bail bonds were given to me.
Did you appear in court, Mr. O'Keefe, on the 8th of April?
I did, ma'am.
And what happened to the forgery and theft charge?
They were dismissed.
And what happened to the other charge, the resisting, reckless driving?
I believe they were amended with no license in possession.
And what happened on that charge?
I don't recall. I just believe that they were amended. Nothing ever happened from it.
Well, did you pay a fine?
Yeah, I paid fines, yes.
Well, then you pled guilty.
Yes.
Either you plead guilty, plead not guilty, you go to trial, you take a plea. There are very few options. So you pled guilty. Do you have a certificate of disposition of dismissal on the forgery and theft charges?
I would be able to get them, yes.
Well, today's the day, sir. Today's the court date.
Understand.
What arrangement, Miss Buckingham, did you make with regard to the repayment of this $4,500 bail?
He told me on the phone, if you can bail me out of jail, you'll have the money back within 3 days. I have over $2,600 saved at my apartment in a coffee can. It was the 29th of March of '05. He was getting ready to send in his taxes. He said then he would have the rest of the money from his tax return and that I would have the money back. If he did not get enough money back from his tax return, that his father would help pay the bail bonds.
But originally, Miss Buckingham, didn't he tell you that he thought the bail would be about $450?
Correct.
So why was he talking in terms of $2,600?
I have no idea.
I didn't even know how much my bail was. Had I known it would have been that much, I would have never even asked my parents to get me out of jail. I would have sat there.
On the 29th of March, how many phone calls did you make?
I believe 3.
The first one was to whom?
To my father.
And what happened with that phone call?
My father owns a bar, and being the owner of the bar, he was unable to leave the bar to come get me.
Oh, I want you to tell me the conversation that you had with somebody.
But the only person that I did get in contact with that night was Miss Buckingham.
No. That's not what I asked you. I said I want you to tell me the conversation you had with your father.
I said that I had been arrested. I'm at Lake County Jail. Can you please come bail me out?
And he said, sorry, I can't leave my place of business.
Exactly.
Cross out father. Who was the next person that you called?
Next person I called was my mother. Was unable to get a hold of her.
And what was the purpose of the call to your mother after the call to your father?
The same, to let her know that I was there and if someone can come get me.
No mother.
Correct.
Then you called the plaintiff.
Yes.
What did you call the plaintiff for?
She was also a co-worker.
What did you call the plaintiff for?
To let her know that I was in jail and to let her know work that I would be
baloney.
detained.
You can't even say that with a straight face, O'Keefe. You can't even say it with a straight face because you didn't figure out where I was going. You didn't figure out until it was too late.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So your father didn't come in.
Jennifer Kelly claimed Jennifer's ex-boyfriend Ryan O'Keefe owes for bail money. Marie claims Ryan was crying when he called her from jail.
Well, let's see the pathology of what you did that evening. You called your father in a panic and said, can you come and bail me out? And your father, who was probably had it up to here with you, said, I'm working. I'm not coming to bail you out. Then you start to sweat and you call your mother to, according to you, come and bail you out. You can't even get her on the phone. Then you say, well, now I'm going to do the responsible thing. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to call Miss Buckingham and tell her, please tell the boss I'm not able to come to work. You haven't been at work a whole day.
Right.
But please tell the boss I'm not able to come to work tomorrow. I don't want to lose my job. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds, Mr. O'Keefe?
As ridiculous as it sounds, I wouldn't, not that jail is the best place to be, it is not. I would have sat there and sat my time out to meet with the judge to get a bond reduced or until I got a hold of someone.
Well, you got a hold of your mother and you got a hold of your father, and your mother didn't want any part of you.
My father would have come within a few days or so.
Your father didn't want any part of you.
He couldn't come.
He didn't want any part of you. He owns a bar. How big a bar?
Pretty good sized bar.
Pretty good sized bar. How many employees does he have?
6 to 8.
He could send one of his employees. All I know is if I got a call from my son who had never been in trouble before, and he said, come and bail me out, I wouldn't say I'm very sorry. I'm doing a television program. You'll have to sit there and wait till I'm finished. And I got news for you. A lot more people depend on me than depend upon your father.
Understand.
So your father didn't come and get you because he's had it up to here with your nonsense. Because if you had outstanding warrants, sir, and you had outstanding warrants, your father has come and bailed you out before, and you haven't shown up.
He's always been there.
He hasn't, and that's what happened. He came, bailed you out before, and you blew off court, which is why they issued warrants for your arrest. Your father said, you sit there. Then you called your mother. You figured maybe I get to my mother. Maybe my mother will feel a little bit softer. But don't tell me you called her and just told her, please report to the boss that I'm not coming to work the next day. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think that you're used to getting over on people. And it seems to me that your parents have had enough of you. So has Miss Buckingham. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,500. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It's a little upsetting.
Parties in the matter of Croucher versus Thorek. Step forward, please.
Heather Croucher is suing her mother, Gay Thorek, for a series of unpaid loans. Heather claims her mom has a gambling problem.
Miss Croucher, this is your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
You claim that you extended 2 loans to her when she needed them. Your mother says, well, she acknowledges the fact that you gave her money. It was a gift. There were never any strings attached and never any promise to repay you, so therefore no contract. When was the first loan and for what?
November 20th of 2005.
And tell me how that came about.
She had called me, told me that her car insurance was past due and that she needed money to get her car back on the road so she wouldn't lose her job.
What kind of job do you have?
School bus driver.
Are you the oldest? And I gather from your complaint that there are 10 children? Mm-hmm. How many at home?
6 small. They're under 16.
Where's their father?
Lives a couple blocks from me.
Did he help out with the children?
Somewhat.
What do you mean somewhat?
He has a few that live with him and live with me, but they're back and forth all the time.
You have joint custody of the children?
Yes.
And he's the father of all 6 children who are at home? Is there any child support involved? Or
no.
Because they spend 50% of the time with each parent.
That's right.
What does he do for a living?
A nursing assistant.
Okay. How much was your car insurance?
It wasn't my car insurance. It was for a Christmas gift.
How much money did she ask for the car insurance?
I gave her $351.72.
What did she say to you about repaying you?
That her first paycheck before Christmas would be the first payment. She'd pay me back.
How did you get this $351.72 to her?
I took it out of my paycheck.
And how did you give it to her?
Oh, I sent her a check.
Do you have that check?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see it, please. A week came, and she didn't pay you back.
Yes. It was about 2 weeks later she'd actually called for another loan.
Well, tell me about that second call.
Second call was for $600. I actually gave her this money without my husband knowing because I took it out of my own paycheck. I thought before he'd know about it, I could actually have it paid back, that she'd pay me back.
Well, did you ask her about the $351.72?
Yes, and then she promised before December 23rd on her next paycheck she'd pay me back the $600 plus the $351.72.
What did she say she needed the $600 for?
To pick up layaways for my brothers and sisters for Christmas.
Okay, and finally?
Finally, about a week or so before Christmas, she called and asked for $1,000. I then asked my husband, because I figured it was a big amount. I didn't want to get any more trouble with him, so I asked him if it would be okay if we gave her money. And I basically had to beg and plead with him because of her track record. He finally agreed. He actually wanted something in writing from her because of her track record, but he said he'd just give her a check. She said she'd pay that amount back with her tax money.
Did she say why she was so financially strapped?
She's always financially strapped. She
Why?
loves the casino.
Which casino?
It's in New York. She lives in New York. I live in Florida. I'm not sure of the name of the casino.
How do you know she goes to the casino?
She goes all the time. Every paycheck, that's where you can find her. She usually stays at the hotel.
Which hotel do you stay at?
I don't.
Why would your daughter make up a story like that?
I have no idea.
Well, she's
I don't
not
know where
making-
this comes from. I haven't been to a casino in probably almost a year. Because I live alone and I have
Well,
to...
the reason she's not
I have
getting
to
her
bring my...
Let her finish.
Okay.
I have to raise the children that live with me. I cannot afford to go to the casino.
Well, you say you live alone. You don't live alone.
I live alone with my children, that's all.
You live alone with your children part-time.
She has 2 children.
No, I have 2 permanently. And the other ones come and go 50% of the time. I would say more like 90%
How
of the
old
time.
are the 2 children who live with you permanently?
9 and 14.
Why don't they go to their father?
They don't want to live with their father.
Why would you take money from your daughter?
I told her I did not want it. She did not have to send it to me.
Just a minute. You did take money from your daughter on 3 separate distinct occasions, because the first check was in November, the second check was the beginning of December, the third check was the end of December. So with 3, if you're telling me that you didn't want to take the money, all you had to do was rip up the checks. So now I'm going to ask you another question. Why would you take money from your daughter?
It was something she wanted so I could pick up layaways for the children for Christmas. So that they would have a good Christmas.
That's not her responsibility. That's your
It's something
responsibility.
she wanted to
Listen
do.
to me. That's not her responsibility. You chose to have 10 children.
Correct.
With your husband.
Correct.
That's not her responsibility. That's your foolishness if you can't support
it's
10
not
children.
foolishness.
If you
No, it's
can't
not.
support, listen to me, if you can't support 10 children and if you have to rely on your older children and it doesn't seem to know.
It was their choice.
Listen to me. Carefully. Very carefully. We're talking responsibility, madam. You chose to have 10 children. She didn't ask to be born. She's married. I assume she's working because she says she
No.
gets a paycheck.
Nope. She's not working at this time now.
Were you working when you gave your mother
Yes.
the money? Because she said she took that money out of her paycheck. And she has a husband. Do you have children?
I have 2.
2 that I don't see.
There might be a reason for that.
That's because we live in Florida.
Well, I purchased airline tickets to come down February break. She wouldn't let me come down. She said, no, you're not coming down. I don't want
That's
you
the
there.
first I've heard of that.
Listen-
yeah, right. You talk to the ex-husband all the time.
Listen to me very carefully, madam.
Ex-husband
You're
did
not
excuse
paying
me.
attention. It's not your children's job to support you.
I didn't
It's
say
your
it was.
job to support your children. And if you feel as if your children are rolling in dough,
I never said that.
then you don't take money from them.
She sent it as a gift.
You don't take money from them. You
They were
say,
sent
I'm...
as
Pay
gifts.
attention!
Oh, I am.
You say, I'm the mother, you're the child. I don't take money from you. I give you things. I give you presents. I give my grandchildren presents. I don't take money from you to take money away from your life. You get a second job. You drive a school bus. That's great. School bus is 3-4 hours a day. Get a job
8
on the
hours a
weekends
day,
if
thank you.
get a job on the weekends if you need more money. Parents don't take money from children. Children, unfortunately, take money from parents. It doesn't work the other way around.
Does when it is a gift.
Listen to
When
me.
it's a gift.
You're not paying attention.
Oh, I
Try
am
putting
paying
on your
attention.
listening ears.
No.
If you are a good mother, and you know
I
that
am a
you're-
good mother.
If you're a good mother,
I am
and
an
your
excellent
daughter
mother
says
to
to
raise
you,
10 children.
listen
I
to
am
me.
an excellent mother.
Listen
Yes.
to me, my dear. If your daughter, who has 2 children and is probably struggling to make ends meet, says to you, I want to give you a gift so that you'll have money for Christmas, a good mother says, I don't want the money.
I did.
Then you take the checks and you rip them up when
And
she
then
sends
she
them.
would have been mad at me.
Oh, get over it. Get over it. You've got one excuse after another. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,951. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yeah, this is case number 575 on the calendar in the matter of Brake versus Krekovich. Party's been sworn in. You did. Folks, have a seat, please.
Ms. Brake, you and the defendant lived together as roommates for a period of time, and it is your claim that you moved out and she owes you some money.
Correct.
She owes you money for rent that you paid for the month of January of 2006, for some security deposit, and you claimed that when you moved out, she defamed you on the internet.
Correct.
The defendant says that you did not give her the requisite 30-day notice, and therefore you're not entitled to your rent back, and in addition, that you moved out owing some utility bills. How long did you know each other before you entered into this roommate relationship?
We met in about June or July of 2005.
Where?
We worked together at a retail store, PetSmart.
Was this an existing house or apartment that you moved into that somebody lived in, or did you find it together?
No, I actually moved into her house, and about 3 to 4 weeks after that, she decided she wanted to find another house. She found a house and signed a lease with Jonathan.
You're Jonathan?
I sure am.
Yes would be sufficient.
Ah, yes, ma'am.
Get up. Now we understand each other.
He did.
This is your boyfriend?
No.
Who is he?
Just my friend.
Were you the only one to sign the lease?
No.
Jonathan also signed the lease?
Yes.
How come you didn't sign the lease?
I have felonies, and I didn't think I would be approved for it.
You had a felony?
Correct.
That's disposed of?
Yes.
Okay. In what month did you move in?
The beginning of October.
When did you move out?
January 1st.
That's the month that you want back?
Correct.
And what about the security deposit?
Her grandmother loaned us the money, and I paid her back.
How much?
$265.
And how much is your share of the rent that you paid?
It was also $265 a month.
Okay. Tell me why you moved out.
On December 31st, we had some friends over, had a New Year's Eve party. Her ex-boyfriend and I went into the room. We were discussing drinks, making a drink for myself. She obviously assumed that something was going on, came over, pushed open the door, told him to leave, and I told him that he was too drunk, he didn't need to be driving. We went back into the front room, sat down. She came over and started yelling at me and reached across the table and slapped me, and I did not feel safe there.
She slapped you where?
On my face.
Did you slap her?
Yes.
Why?
We had been arguing, obviously. I went and approached her when...
Why were you arguing?
We were arguing just because things had been not going well since we first moved in.
Well, it's New Year's Eve, December 31st. You're having a party. What were you arguing about at that time?
We were both drinking, and I was upset that she was flirting with my ex-boyfriend.
Why would you be upset if she was flirting with your ex-boyfriend?
Because I had been drinking, and I was upset.
Well, if you weren't drinking, would you have been upset?
Yes, most likely.
Why?
Because he was my ex-boyfriend, and he was there, and we were still slightly in a relationship.
Who invited him?
He actually came on his own.
Who let him in?
I did.
So you had too much to drink and you slapped her?
I felt threatened, so yes, I did, to calm her down.
You can't do that.
I realized that.
So she moved out the next day?
Yes.
And?
That was it until...
Well, she paid you her rent for January.
Yes.
You can't keep her rent. You assaulted her.
Okay.
So you have to give it back to her.
That's fine.
Now let's get to the security deposit of $265. You have a security deposit?
No, I do not.
Who has it?
My landlord.
Okay. Do you have pictures of the room
Yes,
that
I do.
you took when you left?
Yes.
I'd like to see them, please.
There's also some pictures in there where you can see the irritation on my face from her slaps.
Her room was in good condition when she left?
Yes, it was.
All right. Well, then she's entitled to her security deposit back.
Yes.
Perfect. Now tell me about this defamation.
In January, I got online and checked my email and noticed a couple responses to Ari, and I hadn't sent an email out in quite a while. I opened it up, and a couple of my contacts had emailed me back saying, what is going on? What is this all about? And I go through my sent messages and find an email that was sent out talking about a virus that I supposedly had, and I was at work when this email was sent out.
When was it sent out?
It was this Friday the 6th to the 7th of January.
Well, where was your computer?
She had a home computer of her own, and she had my passwords.
Well, other than the fact that she had your password, is there any proof that she sent those?
No, I don't, but I do have some other things from one of her websites where she was talking about me.
Well, I'll take a look at that.
And then she also posted a couple pictures.
Well, did you write this? Could you please show this to her?
Yes, I did.
And did you send this out?
I did not send that to anybody.
Did you write it?
Write what?
The caption underneath the photograph.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty nasty.
Yes.
Pretty nasty language. What do you do for a living?
I'm a student.
Student of what?
I'm going to school to be a teacher.
You're going to school to be a teacher
Yes.
of young people.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Krekovich, what do you think a prospective employer of a school district would think if she were to forward these emails that you've now acknowledged you've sent with the kind of language that you refer to her as, which is clearly disgusting way to refer to a woman? You think that somebody would hire you?
No, I don't. But
You're right. Nobody would.
Those weren't emails that I sent out.
Listen to me. Did you send this one to her?
No. That's my own
posted
personal
on the
blog.
internet. Just a second. The fact that you even use this word as part of your everyday vernacular would be enough for me as the principal of a school to say, I don't want this potty mouth teaching children. Why would I want to employ Miss Potty Mouth to teach children? I'm sure there are people who know how to refer to women in other than this kind of pejorative. You understand?
Yes.
Do you understand how hurtful that could be to your future and to your career?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Former roommate Corey Krekovich assaulted her and then slandered her on the internet. Corey is countersuing for unpaid utility bills.
Do you understand that by merely discussing this with me, it could be potentially harmful to your career?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, aren't you sorry?
Honestly?
Yes, and if you're not, just make sure you know.
I'm sorry for using those words, and I'm sorry for using them about her, but that is words that I've used and I do use and she does use. And
I
they
don't
come
care
out
about
all
her.
the time.
Are you a school teacher?
No, ma'am.
I'm talking about you and your quest for a job as a school teacher. I wouldn't want you teaching my children or my grandchildren if you just acknowledged to me that this language is part of your everyday
vocabulary.
Well, that's what you just said to me. I use those words. I wouldn't want you. It's not actionable, madam. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. The fact that she has a potty mouth is not actionable.
Well,
Do
it's
you
just
understand?
It's viewable to thousands of people. If I can access it from her personal website, so
It's
can
not
others.
actionable, which means that it doesn't form the basis of a lawsuit. It forms the basis of smutty language. But the defendant should know that she can be harmed by this because now you're armed with this, and I'm going to tell you now that you've acknowledged that these are your words, she might just decide to send it to a prospective employer where you applied to be a student teacher. Would that be nasty?
Yes, it would.
Very nasty and hurtful to you.
Yes.
That's why you don't memorialize your thoughts in this kind of smut, because you never know where they can come around and bite you in the behind. See how I explained to you how they could just come around and bite you in the behind? Did you think of that before?
No, I didn't.
No. Whenever you write something down and memorialize it on the internet, it is there out in cyberspace. Now, I don't use one of those machines, but I know that there are very few things that can be erased permanently. So before you put your fingers to the keyboard, you're supposed to say, my writing this down may make me feel better for the moment, but how could this come back to hurt me? I'm just starting my life and starting my job. Wouldn't it be terrible if when I'm all finished with school and I take my licensing exam, she decides to parade this around and say, this is the kind of person you want teaching your children? So you got to think before you do stupid things. You're getting too old to do stupid things. It's not actionable, but you did get some measure of satisfaction. Right?
Yes.
Good. So far, you owe her $530. Now, what kind of utility bills does she owe you?
She owes me for gas, electric, and water.
What is her share of gas, electric, and
For
water
December?
I'm speaking. For the month of December.
$106.10.
It was 33% of the bill. I've never seen the bills.
Okay, you have the bills?
Yes, I do.
Bird, would you take the bills from one side and show it to the other side for me, please? You may bypass me.
See.
Okay?
Thank you.
So 106 for your share of the bills for the month of December. You owe her $530. Less $106 is $424. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Irene Atkinson is suing her neighbor, Stacy Scott, for the cost of a new windshield. Irene claims Stacy's son, 6-year-old Eric Larry, broke it with a large bolt.
Miss Atkinson, it is your claim that this young man over here threw a bolt through your car windshield, and
Yes.
you want his mom to pay for that. Yes. And Miss Scott says he's a problem.
Yes.
And she's tried just about everything, and he sneaks out of the house, and he gets himself into trouble. She's sort of at her wit's end. There's some suggestion she's not sure that he did it or not, but she said, even if he did it, what am I supposed to do with him? So now I want to know what his problem is. So would you come up here, young man? Now, your name is Eric, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I want you to keep your voice up so Officer Bird can hear you, okay? Like this. Can you do that?
Yes.
Remember when you're out in the street and you want to call somebody down the block? Let me hear you call Peter.
Peter.
Good. That's the way I want to hear you. You have brothers and sisters, Eric?
Yes, sister.
How old is she?
12.
Is she a nice girl?
Yes.
She give your mother any aggravation?
No.
Now let's get to you. You're 6.
Yes.
You give your mother some trouble?
Yes.
Do you behave in school?
Yes.
Sometimes not?
Yes.
You know that it's very important that you tell me the truth?
Yes.
Why?
Because.
Because it's important to tell the truth all the time.
Yes.
Especially in court, right? You know this lady?
Yes.
How do you know her?
She lives in Philly.
She lives in?
Philly.
He's saying she lives in Philly. He actually don't know her, Your Honor.
Do you live in Philadelphia?
No.
Where do you live?
Yes.
This lady says that she saw you throw something in her car windshield and the glass broke. You remember that?
Yes.
Yes or no? I don't hear. Don't look at your mom. You look at me. Do you remember throwing something through her windshield?
Yes.
Tell me why you did that.
Because this boy named Chris, maybe when I was walking on the street, he shook me. He went near the corner to the rock at the window.
I didn't understand all of that except something about a boy named Chris. Who threw the rock through her windshield?
I don't know.
I thought you just told me that you threw the rock through her windshield. So I'm going to ask you again. Who threw the rock or the bolt through her windshield?
I don't know.
Were you there when it was broken?
Yes.
How many people were throwing rocks?
2.
Who?
This boy named Chris and me.
Were you supposed to be out that day?
No.
Did you sneak out of the house?
Yes.
Who was home with you?
My mom.
How did you sneak out of the house?
I went downstairs to put my clothes on and open the door.
Were you supposed to be upstairs? Were you being punished, or were you supposed to be doing your homework? What were you doing in the house?
Being punished.
You know what you were being punished for? You remember?
No.
Go and sit down. You remember what he was being punished for?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm a single parent, trying to maintain a household. I have a 12-year-old daughter and him also. Eric has given me problems throughout the neighborhood. Not just Miss Atkins comes to my house, the whole neighborhood comes to my house. I try to keep him in the house for a month. Just to avoid the problem. I don't bother nobody, and I tell him I don't want no trouble to my house. Now, this particular day, July the 16th, that this had happened, I was in the house. Miss Atkins and the other few people had came to my home stating that Eric and this other little boy, Fuzzle, had broke the church window, and Eric had supposedly had broke the windshield window. Now, from my misunderstanding, she wasn't out there, and neither was I. So we both just going by he say, she say. Now, when I asked Eric what had happened, he told me the boy Chris came up to him, choked him by his neck. When he struggled to let go, that Chris drove back, threw the rock at him, and he said they always throwing rocks. So I'm not sure have Eric broke the window or Chris or Fuzzle. But my thing is she pointed my son out, and I want to know why am I the only one standing up here being sued when there was 2 other children out there throwing rocks also?
Let's find out.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, when the incident happened, I had hollered at Eric and one of his little friends that was with him. They were throwing rocks. I turn around, I go back in my house. I go upstairs. I'm not even upstairs 4 minutes. I look out my window, and I saw Eric throw the rock or bolt. I thought it was a rock at the time. I heard a noise. I ran downstairs. He was running home, and I hollered at him, and I said something bad. The police were called. They had pulled up by the church, because here I come to find out that the 2 boys had also broken the church windows.
What was he being punished for? Do you remember?
Oh, his behavior. Not like I said, not only Miss Atkins come to my house, the whole
Is he in therapy?
I'm trying to get that now because I have child services have came to my home. And I'm not saying Miss Atkins or anybody, because don't nobody really know me on this block, because like I say, I stay to myself. But I have child services have came to my house that said some allegations stating that I was an unfit mother, that my child be out all times of night, that I drink, I'm on drugs, and that was untrue. They have dropped that case. Now they trying to work on him, understand, wondering what's going on with him. Why is his behavior like this?
So have you started?
Yes, I was supposed to hear from Ms. Beth that's handling the case, but I haven't heard from her yet because he was supposed to go get tested,
You have to stay on top of it.
Exactly.
You really have to stay on top of it.
Yes.
Because what was interesting about your answer is you didn't deny that you're having trouble with him.
Right.
That he snuck out of the house.
Yes.
He was being punished.
Yes.
But quite frankly, Ms. Scott, between you and the plaintiff, you have to absorb the cost of the windshield. because I believe her when she said that she saw him throw. It turned out to be a bolt, which I assume you have with you.
Yes.
The windshield you had managed to have replaced for $270?
Yes.
Don't let it get away from you.
Yes.
He's, he's still very young. How does he do in school?
Oh my goodness. School, the same thing. I'm not going to be in denial about his behavior. Okay, last year in kindergarten, it was my first time knowing that kindergarten got suspended for 3 times. Yes. I told him I'm not going to be up here in denial about his behavior because I'm trying to get help for him.
You let it get away from you, he gets too big. Right now he's little.
Yes.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $270. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
You may step out.
I really didn't have much to say because the proof was there.
If I have to keep him in the house, I will.
He's just unsupervised. He just needs more parental supervision.
Has been sworn in. You may be seated.
Mr. Gage, it is your claim that the defendant stole a sign from in front of a building that you recently purchased.
Correct.
When did you purchase the building?
March 15th of 05.
And prior to your purchasing the building, way prior to your purchasing the building, store in that building, what kind of a store was it?
A pest control business.
And when did you vacate that building?
In July of 04.
The Mercers say that they left their sign when they vacated in July of 04, fully intending to move the sign to their new location, that the person from whom you purchased the building knew that it was their sign and that they were going to get it. And they even say that they told you it was their sign and they were going to come and get it. Well, so they moved out in July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So 9 months later, after you purchased the building, they came or had somebody on their behalf come and cut their sign off your pole.
Correct.
And move it to their location. So you not only want the sign or the value of the sign, but also you say it costs you time, money, etc. So you want lots of other expenses. Did Mr. and Mrs. Mercer discuss this sign with you?
Okay, prior to me purchasing the building, I was kind of filling out the area, making sure it's a good area. I noticed their sign was up there, and they had moved next door because...
Do you have a picture of the sign?
I sure do. Actually, I got a couple pictures there.
Okay, it's Mercer Pest Control, correct?
Yes.
And that's the sign you're talking about, this big horizontal sign that's attached to a pole.
Yes, it's a 4x8. I don't know how they removed it. I mean, it's just, it's a big sign.
4 bolts.
Okay, these 4 bolts. Okay.
Just a minute. Whose pole is it?
It's Main Street's. It's my pole, as well as the sign.
Okay, well, that's for me to determine.
Yes.
That's for me to determine. Okay, I gather what you can do is you can sort of slip out their sign that says Mercer Pest Control and put in your sign.
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to get back to my original question. Were you advised that this sign belonged to the Mercers and they intended to get it at some point?
Okay, when I was filling out the area, basically seeing, how the area was, I asked about the building, how was the building. They said, oh, it's a great building. She said that we redid the whole sign. She never once said that she was going to take the sign, okay?
That's a lie. I'm sorry.
Don't.
Yeah,
sorry,
when I went back after I purchased the building, I told them that I had ordered new faces for the sign and that when I put my new faces in, I will give them their old sign back. And, there was some debate. They did say...
Just a second. So at that point, what did the Mercers say to you?
Well, we didn't... this was later on. After all this happened, they disagreed. They said, well, you told us that we could come and take the sign. And I never said that at that point. She told me that she was hinting to me the whole time, like how we redid the sign, how we did all that, and I should have known that they were going to come and take it. And they never once said they were going to take it. I mean, they must have did this in the night. I mean, they didn't do it while I was up there. I have no idea when it happened. All I know is...
Well, we're going to find out when it happened.
Oh, yeah.
You sure will.
Judge, that is not the truth
Ms.
at all.
Mercer, I'm going to ask questions.
Okay.
You're going to answer my questions. You moved out and stopped paying rent when?
In July of 04.
So you do understand that after July of 04, you had no right to be on that premises?
As far as our right to be in
far
the
as
building,
anything.
or as our right to leave the sign there?
You had no right to be anywhere near, on, or around that building. You certainly had no right to go to a pole that was on that property and trespass to remove your sign.
We weren't trespassing.
Yes,
we
you
were
were.
given permission to leave the sign there from the owner.
You were given permission to leave the sign there by the old owner.
Right.
That has nothing to do with him, madam.
We had told him that we were going to be moving the sign, and he never at one time mentioned to us that he intended to just take the panels out of the sign and put his panels in the sign.
Tell me when you had the sign removed.
April the 6th.
I'd like to see the bill from the person who removed it.
I don't have a bill from the person who removed it. I paid him cash.
His name?
His name is, yes, Gator Signs, and it's Charles.
How much did you pay him?
$100.
To have it taken down and moved across the street.
Yes, not to be put back up yet.
Right.
Just listen to me.
Okay.
Very carefully. Yes, I know that you think that you're in the right. The truth of the matter is, you're not. When he buys a property, and you, for all intents and purposes, as far as the new owner is concerned, with whom you had no agreement to leave the sign.
With him? Yes, ma'am, I told him.
I don't care what you told him. That doesn't mean you have an agreement. Because you tell him something doesn't mean you have an agreement.
Nothing in writing.
Right.
No, because you tell him something. Listen to me very carefully, Mr. and Mrs. Mercer. You're in business.
Yes, ma'am.
You're in the pest control business?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's say you go to a client that has a building, and you go in there, and you say to the owner of that premise, it's going to be $5,000 for us to completely exterminate the building. This person says nothing to you. You send in your people. They perform the work. And then the person says, I never agreed to that. They told me it was $5,000, and they sent people in. I never agreed to it. There's no contract. Just because you say to him, that's my sign and I'm going to take it, doesn't means that you put him on notice that you're going to take the sign. That doesn't mean you have a right to take it. Now, I want you to tell me, what took you 9 months? You moved, and clearly you were in business someplace else for the 9 months.
Across the street.
Across the street. What kind of sign were you using?
Just a placard-style sign. There was a series of 4 different hurricanes that came through during this time we're speaking about, and to get a signed person at that point in time to come and remove our sign was almost impossible. They were handling the larger people.
Mr. Mercer, you told me a moment ago that the sign was up with 4 bolts.
Yes, ma'am.
You look like a big, strong, strapping
I ain't
guy.
that strong.
Because I was going to say, he says that it was cut off the pole. You say it was 4 bolts.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you need somebody to come and take it off?
You have to have a lift arm crane to hook onto the top bolt of the sign to support the weight, and then they cut the heads off of the 4 bolts because they're tack welded down by code.
So he is correct. So he is correct that you had to cut into his pole.
They cut into the bolt heads they told me. I never seen this.
They
I don't
cut
know.
it to the pole.
But
you
I believe
can't
the
do
same.
that, Mr. Mercer. You did not have a contract with Mr. Gage.
Your Honor, I didn't need one. It was my sign. It's never been his sign.
No, my dear, listen to me very carefully. Let me explain something to you. You have an obligation, and your obligation is that when you vacate property that you are not paying rent on, property, if you left something inside the building, let's say you left fixtures, instead of being outside the building, let's say you put in new light fixtures, and you said, well, when I move into my new place and get it all renovated, I'm going to come back and take my light fixtures because I bought them. They're attached to the property, and they're mine. Well, do it look like you're losing? I didn't ask you anything. Put it down. The old owner says, listen, I'm not renting it yet. I'm just going to sell it. When I sell it, you can have your light fixtures back. Move along. He goes in. He sees the building, light fixtures that he likes, buys everything that's attached to the property, just like the sign that was attached to the property. Light fixtures, sign, toilet, sink, attached to the property, now belongs to the new owner. And unless you have a contract with the new owner that permits you to go and take this property, everything that's attached to the property belongs to him. I'm merely telling him that it's my sign and I'm going to come and get it, unless he says, fine, come and get it.
Well, I think being maybe down where we're at, things are a little more naive and laid back. And I thought about speaking to Mr. Gage, him being one town over, we were on the same wavelength. Either he's very articulate and smooth, or he's a bold-faced liar, one of the two. So whatever you decide, we certainly understand, but I just want him to know that from me to him. It's just, one thing to the other.
I got you. I mean, I understand your position, and your position is that there are 4 hurricanes. You didn't get it down in time. You said to him, I'm going to, listen, I had an agreement with the prior owner. The prior owner said that I could leave the sign up here.
Yes, ma'am.
He says,
and they all
I'm
knew.
not.
The realtor, the old owner, Mr. Gage. So it kind of threw us a curve.
Mr. and Mrs. Mercer, the truth of the matter is I don't think you're bad people.
Well, thank you.
And I think that you believe that you had the right to go over there and take property that you believed was yours.
Yes, ma'am.
Unfortunately, this property was a fixed property that he purchased. So how much is the new sign for you?
Now, this is just a sign frame.
That's all I want, the sign frame, not all the other aggravations.
Well, the total with the sign added up, installation, and all that basically comes out to $2,689.06.
How much did you pay for it?
$9,010.
$9,000?
We leased the sign.
It was a 3-year lease sign.
And then we purchased the sign.
So this is a bargain.
Yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
He didn't stop working for you. You fired him.
I think I was well within my reason. He seems extremely accident prone.
Well, madam, you picked him.
Linda and Anthony Mercer cut down his business sign. The Mercers claim the sign belonged to them.
So my question is, you want to get a new sign, or are you happy with the old sign?
Oh, my
We're very happy with
love
our
our
sign.
sign.
Fine, very good. So how much was the new sign for you, sir?
$2,689.06.
That is just for the sign frame.
Well, that's including, you know, some of the, like the court fees and all that. You don't want just the sign? Okay. Okay, no problem. Hey, I'll work with you.
I speak English.
That's fine. Okay. Sign frame, $1,597.50. The shipping for it is $228.72. The sign installation, $592.41.
500 and
$92.41.
2417. Okay. It's unfortunate, since you're right next door to each other, that you're not going to have pleasant relationship.
There'll be no hugs and kisses over there.
There'll be no hugs and kisses?
No, ma'am.
No hugs and kisses.
No.
Well, that's unfortunate. Maybe, Mr. Gage, you should have avoided this problem by just saying, listen, I'm going to put up a new sign. I can understand why you're aggravated, but I don't think the Mercers intended to do anything wrong. I think that they were laboring under the legitimate assumption that this property belonged to them. Unfortunately, they were wrong. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $2,417. Good luck.
Pardons are excused. You may step out.
Anna Bashenstein is suing her former employee, Paul Brunst, for damaging her horse trailer. Paul says Anna fired him before he could pay her off.
Ms. Bashenstein, you hired the defendant to do some odd jobs around your residence, including tree clearing and getting rid of some brush. At some point, Mr. Brunst was using a trailer of yours to dispose of property.
That's right.
From your house. And there was an accident with the trailer, and the trailer was damaged. There was an agreement, according to both of you, that in lieu of paying for the damage, Mr. Brunst would continue to work for you, pretty much free of charge, and continue to clear the trees.
That's
correct?
Right.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then there was a brush fire. You set some fire to some brush, and you were burned.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then you decided that you didn't want this guy around anymore. He was like an accident looking to happen, so you terminated his employment.
He wanted to keep working to pay off the trailer.
Correct.
And I thought it wasn't a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So you terminated your contract with him, your oral contract with him, to allow him to work off the damage.
Yes.
Now you want him to pay for the damage.
Exactly.
Interesting. How much did she pay you in the time that you worked there?
I was around $480.
It was $382.40.
$382. And how many days did you work there?
I worked there for about a week and a half.
That's not true. It was less time than that. I was paying him $10 an hour.
Just a second. Shh, listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work was he doing?
He was clearing brush.
And trees?
Yes.
When I say trees, I mean cutting down trees and taking them away?
Well,
that would be a yes or a no?
Yes.
Had you gotten other estimates for that work?
Yes.
And what were the other estimates?
I got them from two different tree guys.
Okay, and the two different tree guys gave you estimates for how much?
Approximately $5,000.
Say it a little louder.
Approximately $5,000.
And certainly Mr. Brunst was doing it for a lot less.
Yes, he was unemployed and was
Second,
asking.
listen to me. How much did he clear?
Maybe
Mr. Brunst?
50 to 100 square feet.
How much did you clear of the property that had to be cleared?
A little over half of it.
That's not true at all.
Madam, you breached a contract. There was an accident with the trailer. There's no indication that there was an accident with the trailer because he intentionally damaged the trailer. Is that right?
He didn't intentionally damage it.
Of course not. The trailer, according to you, at some point the hitch broke, chain broke.
He never had it hitched up.
Whatever it was, and it rolled down a hill, and it was dented.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and you had been using it for how long?
About 3 days.
And how many trips did you make with it in the 3 days that you were using the trailer to dispose of this brush?
4 trips.
And it was on the 4th trip or the 5th trip that there was this accident?
It was on the 5th trip, Your Honor.
So you made 4 successful trips?
Yes, Your Honor.
No problem.
No.
So there's no indication that this was done with any malice. He wasn't drunk. It was an accident.
Right.
Do you have homeowners insurance?
I do, and it's covering his health care since he didn't have health care. And the reason that the fire happened and he wound up with medical expenses was that he dumped 5 gallons of gasoline on the fire in order to start it. Even though he told me that he'd been to the fire department, talked to them about the proper way to have a brush fire to dispose of the brush, and I kept telling him to use his best judgment and to dispose of the brush in the way that he found.
He used his best judgment. His best judgment wasn't good enough.
Apparently
Ms.
not.
Brunstenstein. He was giving you a bargain rate. Bargain. Physically
I
for.
just don't know what the rate has anything to do with.
Listen to me very carefully. I don't answer your questions. You answer mine. You were getting a bargain rate from somebody who was clearly unskilled because according to you and according to him, he was out of work. I thought he was being very nice when he said, listen, I used this trailer 4 times. On the 5th time, whatever, the chain broke loose and it went down a hill. But I'll work off the money to fix it by working for you until it's paid off.
That seemed fair.
That was very nice.
Right.
He didn't stop working for you. You fired him.
I think I was well within my reason. He seems extremely accident prone.
Well, madam, you picked him. You picked him. You picked him to work for you. You had an opportunity to check his credentials. You had an opportunity to see if he ever had done this work before. You had the opportunity to go to the fire department just like he did. And you said to him, without doing any of those things, use your best judgment. Unfortunately, his best judgment wasn't good enough. And he burned himself. So I suggest, that's right. Absolutely right. But you had a contract with him, and your contract was he was going to continue to work off the damage done to the trailer. And if he had left without doing that and said, I'm not working for you anymore, well, then you would have had a cause to sue him. But because you changed your mind doesn't mean that you can sue him. You fired him. Your case is dismissed. Goodbye.
Okay.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
So you want to keep working for me, Paul?
You've been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Miss Coburn, you sold Mrs. Scotese a used car.
Correct.
Her car. She made payments on it for a while, and according to your complaint, she stopped making the payments. You repossessed the car.
Correct.
You want the balance that she owes you for the original purchase price.
Correct.
Miss Scotese says she made most of the payments on the car. You repossessed the car, but when you repossessed the car, her property was in the car, and she is counterclaiming for her property. That's your property. So that's going to be turned over to you. So that resolves your counterclaim. When was the car purchased, Ms. Coburn?
November 19th of 2004.
And what was the purchase price?
$2,800.
What kind of car was it?
1992 Mazda MX-3.
Were you friends? Did you know each other at the time of the sale?
I knew her from her sister.
So you weren't strangers?
No.
How much of a deposit did you leave, Ms. Scotese?
I put $1,000 down when I went and picked up the vehicle.
You agreed that
Yes,
that's what she put down. When was the car repossessed?
October 14th of 2005.
From November 2004 until October of 2005, how many payments did Ms. Scotese make on the car?
3.
And what were the amounts of the payments?
2 $200 payments and 1 $100 payment.
Now, Ms. Scotese, I assume you're going to tell me that you paid more than the $500 ascribed to you by Ms. Coburn.
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you say you paid?
I did pay the $300, or the $500 she's speaking of were made in check forms my sister had wrote. However, when she came to Spokane, she was given $300 cash while my sister was at my sister's house. And then I have made...
Who paid the $300? You or your sister?
I paid the $300 cash at my sister's house with my sister there.
Is that right?
That is incorrect.
Okay. Where is the car now?
I've actually resold the car.
For how much?
$400, which I have evidence for all the damage and stuff.
No. Show me proof that you sold the car for $400. Who did you sell it to?
Monica.
Who was that person?
She's just an individual that was interested in the car.
Do you have a blue book value on this car?
No, I actually don't.
Well, let's find out. Bert, could we find out about a 1992 Mazda MX-3 CP?
Fair is $1,000. Good is $1,450.
Well, you gave Monica a real bargain at $400.
That was due to the fact that there was a lot of damage to the car, which I have estimates for, if you'd like to see those.
What kind of damage?
There's a dent on the driver's side door with black scratch marks. The driver's side mirrors broke. The check engine light kept on coming on, and then something with the transmission came up.
You have a report on the car?
I do.
I'd like to see it.
I have pictures as well. Would you like to see those?
I would. Well, that's not much of a dent. How'd the mirror get broken?
The car was recently hit at work, in my parking lot at work, and I was working on, actually, the insurance company fixing it from the vehicle that hit it.
Why did you stop making payments on the car?
Because I had moved and I had fallen behind on my car payments, and we had spoken and we had made an agreement that I would catch myself up. That way the car was paid off in August like we had discussed. At that time, that's when I made the $400 and the $300 money order payment, owing still $200 to her. I had problems with the vehicle since I bought it, and she's very aware of this. I already had transmission, and it's a used car.
Old car.
Oh, yes, and I'm not blaming her for these, but I'm saying that the issues that she's describing are the same issues I've had since I've had the vehicle.
Okay, she's entitled to her money.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, she's entitled to her money.
Fine with me. Okay, she sold the vehicle. Can I ask when that was? Because 2 days ago, my sister seen the vehicle parked out on the street in Spokane with my belongings, some of my belongings still in there. So I have a feeling that all my stuff is not there.
The 19th of November.
And on the 28th, my sister had taken some pictures seeing the vehicle parked in Spokane with still some of my belongings in that vehicle.
How would that happen?
The car is still in Spokane due to the fact that I had to get the estimated damages to make sure that it was able to come back over to Seattle because it was clunking and the engine light was coming on and it was wanting to
Just a second.
stall.
So you're telling me that you sold the car to this person that you didn't really know, Monica, and you sold it to her on the 19th of November, but you still kept it in your house on the 26th of November?
No, it's not at my house.
Or on the street?
It's at the shop where the estimate came from.
It's
that is where the car
Firestone. She doesn't even live in Spokane.
Just a second. That doesn't sound right to me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Can't say because I was...
His former friend, Jessica Scotise, owes for the balance on a car she sold her. Jessica is countersuing for the return of belongings.
How do you know Monica?
She's an affiliate through a friend of mine.
Now I don't believe you.
Seriously.
No, now I don't believe you. I asked you who she was before. Before you didn't tell me that you knew this person.
Well, I really don't know her specifically. I know of her through somebody
Listen, you
else.
sold the same car twice. She gave you at least $1,500 for the car. And I'm not so sure that Monica, who lives in a post office box, according to this, gave you only $400. Sometimes people put that down so that they can reduce the tax that they have to pay when they go and register a car. That sometimes happens. You do know that, don't you?
I understand that.
Good. So
that
you sold the same car twice. I wouldn't complain. Give her back her property. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Why is that excused?
19-year-old Alexandria Emmerling is suing her former roommate, 18-year-old Amber Marino, for unpaid utility bills and harassment. Amber says left her high and dry.
Miss Emmerling, you and the defendant decided to share an apartment together. You managed to get somebody to give you a month-to-month situation so you didn't have to sign a long-term lease.
That is correct.
Your arrangement with each other was that you would split the expenses of the apartment, including utilities. Your complaint alleges that Miss Marino owes you for some utilities for the last month that you lived there together as roommates. Miss Marino says that you, without notice, moved out, leaving her in a situation where she was actually homeless for a short period of time. But more importantly, because you moved out of the apartment without giving her sufficient notice, the landlord refused to return her $150 security, which more than covers the utilities that you are allegedly owed. So, when did you move in together?
October 1st of 2005.
And you knew each other before as friends?
Yeah, we had a few classes together in school.
Which school?
Jamestown High School.
You both thought it was a good idea right from high school to move out on your own?
Well, there was a period where we didn't talk very much, and then over the summer we started hanging out more, and we thought we both wanted to get out and experience life on our own without parents. You know what I mean? Kind of more responsible, you know.
Well, you certainly were responsible. When did you move out of the apartment?
On December 30th of 2005.
Now, when you moved in, did you have to give the landlord security?
Yes.
How much?
$150 each.
Did you get your security deposit back?
Yes.
How did you manage to get your security deposit back?
I gave the landlord a month notice. I paid for January, and I went in and cleaned the apartment. She left it a mess, and in order to get the deposit back, it had to be in the condition that we rented it in.
When did you move out?
As soon as she took her stuff out of the apartment.
Which was when?
Towards the end of December. I had bronchitis. I was out of work for a week. And I had gone home to do a nebulizer treatment to help my breathing, and I took a nap, and I came home, and her stuff was gone out of her bedroom, like her necessity stuff, her clothes, her makeup. So I had, you know, it triggered that I had to move out.
So you did move out?
So I did move out.
Did you go back and clean the apartment?
No, I didn't clean it.
Why not?
I didn't know what she was doing. She could have been staying. I left.
You just told me when you came back her stuff was gone.
Not the entire, like her necessity stuff, not the furniture, just what she needed to not be at the apartment.
How much was the December's bill?
The gas bill was $80. It was $81. We usually split it. She would give me $40. I'd pay $41.
What else?
The final bill
she cranked the heat on me, and it went up to $336.
Well, how do you know she did that?
Because she's the only one who was there.
Why would I do that, though?
Out of
You
rage,
can't.
I'm assuming.
You can't assume anything. What other utilities were there?
The electric bill.
And how much was that?
It was $45.
You have those bills here with you?
Yes, I do.
So she owes you $63 in utilities. And I would speak to the landlord about what happens to the heat. Why don't you think you have to pay the $63, which was for December?
Because she left me high and dry. When we first moved in, I had told her I could not move out for a short 2-month period. My parents had told me if you want to go and try to do it on your own, that's fine, but don't expect to come running back if it doesn't work.
19-year-old Alexandria Emmerling is suing her former roommate, 18-year-old Amber Marino, for unpaid utility bills and harassment. Amber says Alexandria left her high and dry.
Where did you go when you left?
I had to stay with my friend Mashana.
Are you still with Mashana?
No, I'm back at home now. Yes.
So how long did you stay with Mashana? A couple of days?
Oh,
a week?
A week and a half.
And then you
It was
went back to
through
your
Christmas.
parents?
Yes.
All right, keep going. Keep going. So far, you're not pulling on my heartstrings.
I'm sorry. I had no intention of leaving the apartment. When she
It didn't work out. That's why you did. Yeah, you had a month-to-month lease. It didn't work out. She went home. You ultimately went home. She can't get stuck with the utility bill. $63 is what you owe her. If you didn't clean the apartment, you don't get your security deposit back. You were supposed to give the landlord 30 days notice.
But I couldn't do that because she up and left. I talked to the landlord as soon as it happened, and she told me that I'd have to pay January.
Well, that's exactly right. She paid her half of January. If you had paid your half of January, you would have gotten your security back. That would have been a wash. You chose not to do that because to do that, you had to clean the apartment, but at least you would have had a clean credit rating. The landlord would have felt as if you at least did the right thing, Miss Marino. You know, things have a tendency to come back and grab you if you don't do the right thing. But you have to do the right thing by each other. And you can't say because I was 17 at the time and I turned 18 later that I'm a baby. If you're too much of a baby to accept your responsibility, you should have stayed home. You owe her $63. Judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you. That's all.
Laura Rodriguez is suing her boyfriend's twin brother, John Estrada, for her dog's vet bills after he was hit by a car. Laura says a drunken John let the dog out of the house.
Kurt, would you take the little girl outside, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Come with me.
Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Estrada is your fiancé's brother, his twin brother. And this past New Year's, I gather you were out celebrating together with a group of people, is that right?
Correct.
What time did you go out?
We probably got there about 7.
And what time did you get home?
We probably got home about 2 o'clock.
Everybody drinking? Everybody having a good time?
I wasn't drinking on New Year's.
But your fiancé was drinking?
Correct.
And according to you, the defendant was drinking?
Correct.
As most people were that evening. You got home and according to you, the defendant opened your garage door and your 3 dogs ran out. One of the dogs subsequently was hit by a car and injured. And you want Mr. Estrada to pay the vet bills.
Correct.
And Mr. Estrada says...
I don't want to pay the vet bills. What happened is that when we got to the house, I opened the garage door. My brother says,
Who did?
My brother says open the garage door, so I opened the garage door. So I opened it up, the dogs
Who
went
was in
running.
the car? Just a second. Mr. Estrada, we're going to do this at my pace, sir. Were you in the car with your brother?
Yes.
And the plaintiff?
Yes.
Who else was in the car?
My wife and my daughter and little man.
Who was driving?
Laura was driving.
And where were you sitting?
I was in the front.
Now, you got to the house and the garage door was down.
Yes.
Now, you say that your brother told you to open the garage door.
Yeah, because we all got out of the car at the same time.
Well, why would he tell you to open the garage door?
Because I was there at the first one to go open the garage door.
So he had to tell you to open the garage door?
Well, that's when I was reaching for the garage door, and he says, go ahead and open the garage door. So I opened the garage door.
No, Mr. Estrada. Mr. Estrada, that doesn't sound right. You mean your hand was reaching for it and he said to you, open the garage door?
No, he just says open the garage door, so I went for the garage door.
That's not what you just told me, Mr. Estrada.
Well, that's what I meant.
No, don't tell me what you meant. What you said was you were reaching for the garage door and he told you to open the garage door. Is there a side entrance to the house?
It was locked, so we all went through the garage door.
Is that how you exited the house?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Some exited through the garage, some exited through the front door.
How did Mr. Estrada exit the house?
Through the garage.
How did you exit the house?
Through the garage.
How did you exit the house that day when you were going out?
The garage.
So when you came home, you were going back in the same way into the garage. Is that... Don't speak.
Okay.
Isn't that correct, sir?
Yes.
Stand up. Your last name is Estrada?
Yes, ma'am.
If your brother hadn't opened the garage door, who would have opened the garage door?
I probably would have opened it up.
Okay. So he just got there first?
Yeah.
Good. Now you can sit down. You were out for the evening. When you went out, had you put the dogs in the garage and closed the garage doors?
Yes, I had a daughter who was still there. That was going to be, she lives across the street. She was going to tie
You're thinking as you're going.
No, I'm not.
So you're thinking as you're going. So I would suggest if you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. So listen to me very carefully. Were the dogs in the garage when you left, or were they in the house when you left?
No, they were in the garage when we left.
Okay, so somebody had to hold the 3 dogs in the garage while all of you people traipsed outside, because otherwise the dogs start running all over the place.
Right.
Who was that?
My daughter is the one. We all left the garage. My daughter, who lives across the street, I had called her and asked her to put the dogs in the garage.
So listen, Mrs. Rodriguez, when I said if you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
I am telling the truth.
No, you didn't tell me the truth before. So you left the dogs in the house, and you called your daughter and said, go and put the dogs in the garage. That's what you just told me. Is that what happened?
They're in the backyard. She put them in the garage for me.
Miss Rodriguez, these are your dogs?
Yes, they are.
These are your dogs. You take care of them. It's not his responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility.
I understand that. But when he opened up the door, he already knew, everybody knew I was going through the front door to open up the garage, put my dogs in the backyard. Your Honor,
don't tell me what he knew.
They were,
listen to me.
They were barking when we got there.
Don't tell me what he knew. Your fiancé just said to me that if his brother hadn't opened the garage doors, he would have opened the garage doors. That's the way you left.
Dogs were there.
Don't tell me what he knew. They're your responsibility. They're your dogs. They're your responsibility. They're your vet bill. You pay it. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Bars are excused. You may step out. You may be seated.
Okay, Miss Castillo, it is your claim that Mr. Gonzalez, who was a friend of yours, somehow got hold of your car and caused damage on 3 separate occasions in one night.
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez says that you were so drunk that night that you don't remember that you were driving and you caused the damage to your own car.
Not true.
Right?
Right.
And you are just friends?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I was messing
I don't
around
want to
for a
guess
while.
what I'm going to say anything. I'm asking you, are you just friends or are you more than friends?
Yes, we were just friends.
Not intimate?
Yes, we were intimate a couple times.
Well, Bert is my friend. We have never been intimate. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you understand the difference? How old are you?
21.
How old are you?
35.
All right. So that's a little bit of a difference. Okay, so you were intimate friends. That's a new category of friends. There were people who were intimate, then there were friends, and then somewhere in the middle there were intimate friends. You are one of those. When did this assault on your car take place?
June 5th.
Okay. And what were you doing out with Mr. Gonzalez?
Actually, I was home when he called me and asked me to give him and his friend Mike a ride home. And I went.
Why did they need a ride home?
I didn't ask.
And you said, fine, I'll come and pick you up and give you a ride home.
Sure.
Keep going.
When I got to the restaurant, the establishment, he was there with 3 other gentlemen. They were there eating and drinking, and I ordered a margarita and a half.
How many margaritas did you have?
Just one. And then from there, they wanted to take off, and we went to a billiards place where we were there only a half hour. I played billiards with one of the other gentlemen that was there with them. They wanted to leave. We went to another local establishment, a local bar.
So you were playing chauffeur that night?
Pretty much.
So the reason for the phone call was you guys wanted to drink, and you needed somebody to
Drive.
chauffeur you around.
Yes.
Did you tell her that?
Yes, I did.
What did you say to her?
I asked her for a ride because we had all been drinking.
Well, a ride to take you home is one thing. A ride to schlep you from one place to another so you continue to drink is something entirely different.
Oh, well, we planned on going home. But when she got there, she started drinking with us. And we said, well, you feel like going somewhere else? She said, yeah. So we went.
Keep going, Miss Castillo.
When we left that establishment, we dropped off his other friend, the one that they went in a car with, to his car, to his vehicle, and from there I went to a local gas station in that same shopping center. When I went there, I got off, left the keys in the ignition, paid gas to the pump where I was parked at. When I came out, my car was gone. I panicked. I was looking around the parking lot, looking to see where they were. I gave them time. I'm thinking maybe it's a practical joke. Maybe they're out there looking at me, freaking out. I gave them about 15, 20 minutes, and at that point, I had dialed 911 to report the car stolen. When I looked up, he was driving back in the car with his friend still in the car. I was yelling at him. He refused to get out of the driver's side and said he was going to drive himself and his friends home. Said, fine. I pumped the gas in my car, got in the passenger side, and he drove his first friend home. He drove recklessly to the point where that friend didn't even wait till the car came to a complete stop. He literally jumped out of the car before he stopped the car in motion. Okay, and he tells me that's what you get for hanging out with a 21-year-old. He yells that through the window.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah. He speeds off. And I'm yelling and telling him to stop, get out of the car. He doesn't get off the car. Drives down a road where there's construction on both sides of the road. There's bolted cones with concrete dividers on both sides of the road. He's driving recklessly. He's hitting these cones. I counted 8. When I seen him headed towards the concrete divider, I literally had to put my hand on the steering wheel to avoid a real major crash. When I did that, he still didn't stop. He had all green lights for whatever reason. We drove to his house. We go into his house. I told him I wanted some resolve. I wanted something in writing. He tells me to go wait.
Just a second. You went into his house. And what happened when you got into his house?
We were talking.
Look at me. Now here, you see, I can tell when somebody is not giving me the accurate story. So don't start embellishing now what you think you want to tell me. What happened when you went into his house?
We talked. I told him I wanted...
What did you say to him?
I told him I wanted something in writing. I asked him, how are we going to handle the situation?
What situation?
About him hitting the car. I hadn't seen the damages to the car yet. I knew he was hitting the pylons, and I knew he had already hit, there was some damage, but I hadn't actually inspected the car at this point. So then he brushes me off, goes into the back room, talks to his friend Mike, then he tells me to wait for him in my car outside, and we'll talk some more. So there I go. I walked outside of the house, went into the car, sat in my car, and at this point I see him getting in Mike's car, and they're driving away. So I turned on my car, I followed them to an apartment complex all the way across town. At this point, I'm looking for my cell phone, which I couldn't find, somewhere on the floor.
Because you're drunk?
That's not true. And when we got there, I followed them to a dead end, and I had to back up. I backed up so that they can straighten out. They were there in the car for about 5 minutes, and then Mr. Gonzalez gets off the car, comes towards my car. In the meantime, his friend Mike drives off, tells me to move over so we could talk. Then he's telling me that he had no reason to bow down to me like I was some princess, that that's the reason why he doesn't have a valid license, because he can't drive. And he puts the car in reverse, backs it into the wall, then he drives off.
So you let him get into the driver's side, and you moved over. I assume you have a bench?
It's not a bench seat, no.
What is
Two
it?
separate seats.
Two separate seats. So you had to crawl over, and where's the whatever?
It's right there in the center.
It's in the middle.
It's in the middle.
Yeah.
So you had to sort of get your leg over there, and he opened up the driver's side, unless you got out of the driver's side and walked around to the passenger side, so you scooted over somehow. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, I did.
You scooted over somehow and let him in.
I didn't have a choice. He was practically sitting on my lap.
Miss Castillo.
Well, I still scooted over.
Miss Castillo, my dear, you're a 35-year-old woman. You had a choice. As soon as he got to his house and you dropped him off, instead of following him across town to an apartment complex in a dead-end street, you call 911. And you say, this man got into my car, took my car, damaged my car. I want to report the damage to my car. Because according to you, you went into his house, Miss Castillo, to get him to sign a piece of paper. Did he sign it?
No.
So at that point, you should have had some clue that he was not going to take responsibility for what he had done to your car. Is that right?
No.
You thought he was going to take responsibility, and that's why he got into Mike's car and
no, that's
drove
why
away?
I followed him, because I didn't know if he was going to drop him off somewhere and disappear. But when I tried to look for my cell phone, I couldn't find it. It wasn't on in my purse.
All right, Mr. Gonzalez, go.
My turn?
That's why I'm looking at you.
Yeah, after we left the first establishment, we went to another bar. We did have about 3 pictures. When we left, she asked me to drive because she had been drinking. I said, no, there's no way I'm going to drive. I have a DUI. I'll pick up another one, and I'm in trouble.
I don't want you to speak.
So I told her no. She asked everybody to drive, actually, but she pestered me about it. I didn't drive. When we went to the gas station, nobody took her car. She came back, put gas. We dropped off my friend. We dropped off another friend, went to our house. She followed me inside, and we were there for about 2 hours. And she didn't ask me
What were you doing for the 2 hours in your house?
We were playing intimate friendship. And after that...
You're a fast learner.
Yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
This is a tape recorder where he leaves...
Former lover, Manuel Gonzalez, drove her car without permission and wrecked it. Manuel claims Rebecca is making up a story.
Keep going.
Then after that, I told her to leave because we had to drop off one of my buddy Mike's girlfriend that had just got there. And I didn't want to see her anymore. And she got up things about me and her. And I told her, I'm not with you. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to have nothing to do with you.
This is after you played intimate friendship?
Yes. Of course. And then after that, she went to her car. We left. About halfway to our destination, we realized she was following us. We turned into the apartments where we were supposed to be. She followed us in, and you have to turn like zigzag. So we parked on the side, and as soon as she came in, I got off the car and told her why she was following me, and I was pretty upset. While she mashes out in reverse, boom, hits a wall, and I ran around the side of the car to the driver's side because I was pissed. I was telling her things, I probably shouldn't have been saying. But then she takes off forward and hits the front side of her car on one of those big poles.
Okay. Now, I see that you have something over there, Miss Castillo. I'd like you to tell me what it is.
This is a tape recorder where he leaves me a voice message the day after the incident where he admits he took off in my car without me.
Oh, I'd like to hear that. That I would like to hear, and I would like you to give it to Officer Burns because I want to listen to it very carefully. You wouldn't have done that, sir.
No.
Is that right?
No, that's not my voice.
Oh. Let's see.
076. Received June 6th at 7:19 a.m.
Hey, when I left you yesterday, when you left at the night, your car was fine. I don't know what you're tripping on. I didn't do nothing to your car. I didn't hit nothing, and after I took off, I only took off once without you. And when I came back, your car was fine. I didn't hit nothing, so I don't know why you're going to be mad at me. But if you're all right, you're late.
Erase.
That is your voice, Mr. Gonzalez?
That is not my voice.
Sure it is.
Does that even admit that I was driving?
Yeah, it said that I only took off in your car once, and I didn't do any damage to your car.
Well, that wasn't me. I haven't driven.
I only took off. Listen to me. This is what it says.
Okay.
And you know what's logical, Mr. Gonzalez, because you're a smart young man.
Yes.
If she was going to falsify this and have somebody else pretend that they were you,
yes,
she would have had this person say, listen, I'm sorry I did all the damage to your car. I'll pay you for it.
Yes.
Wouldn't have had them say, listen, I didn't damage your car. I took off with it once and I brought it back. Nothing happened to it. So I don't know what you're complaining about. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Good. So this is your voice, and you acknowledge that you took off once with her car, but you say, I didn't cause any damage to your car. That I believe. So you see, you shouldn't fib.
Okay.
Because if you fib, then I can doubt everything that you're telling me. Now, Miss Castillo, I don't believe you damaged your car. I think that you were really angry, and I think that your car got damaged. You did it, or you let him drive your car. Now, if you're going to choose playmates, you got to choose playmates that are somehow equal to you. These young men on that night in June were doing nothing more than using you as a chauffeur. I am not comfortable enough with your story to find that Mr. Gonzalez, as outrageous as his behavior might be and however morally reprehensible his behavior might be, is responsible for the damage to your car, Ms. Castillo. So your complaint is dismissed. That's all.
Thank you.
Party's excused. You may step out.
She was probably hating that I didn't want to be with her.
I don't even want him.
She said it over and over that she wanted to be with me. And
He's not even my type.
he's a nice person, but I wasn't having it, you know what I mean?
The lies just don't stop. In his dream.
Goodall versus Elder. Step forward, please.
19-year-old nanny Stephanie Goodall is suing her former employer, 26-year-old Wendy Elder, for a fraudulent check she cashed on Wendy's behalf.
Berg, you got to listen to this very carefully. I don't always ask you to do it, but this one is just one of those.
I will pay attention.
Okay. Miss Goodall was Miss Elder's nanny.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to the complaint, Miss Elder, according to her, received a check from some relative. And the check, for some reason, was made out to Miss Goodall, because according to Miss Elder, this relative was Goodall to cash the check. Miss Goodall deposited the check for $1,850 in her checking account, and then slowly, over the course of several days, withdrew the money and gave it to Miss Elder. It turns out that the check bounced. Now, Miss Elder got the cash and spent it.
Of course.
Miss Goodall got the shaft because her bank wants their money.
Sure.
Miss Elder is outraged that Miss Goodall is suing her, and she's going to explain why. Go.
Your Honor, I didn't write those checks. They were not in my name. They were in her name. I spoke to my relative over the phone. I explained to him that we were having a nanny for my brother's wedding, and he offered to pay expenses and nanny expenses. And I said,
okay. Just a minute. You're adding that to your answer, by the way. That's not what you said in your answer. What you said in your answer was that a relative of your husband's agreed to help you with trip expenses. Not nanny expenses, trip expenses.
Trip and nanny expenses, Your Honor.
Listen to me. You have a husband, correct?
Yes,
because
Your Honor.
you say this is a relative of your husband's.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I assume your husband has a job?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what about you?
I'm a stay-at-home mom of two.
You're a stay-at-home mom. Do you have a home?
We live in an apartment.
Do you pay rent?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have a car?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your husband has a job?
Yes, Your Honor.
You pay telephone, gas, electric?
Yes, Your Honor.
You pay them by check or cash?
We pay them by money order.
So your husband gets his paycheck, and what does he do with it?
We go.
Don't think fast. What does he do with his paycheck?
He cashes it.
Where?
At the bank.
What bank?
Wells Fargo.
Is that where you keep your account? You
No,
can't cash a check there unless...
It's drawn on there.
What kind of work does he do?
A grocer. He's a grocery manager.
How long has he worked there?
11 years.
Is there any reason why you don't have a checking account? Is not an answer. Most people have a reason. If they have a job for 11 years, they have a wife, they have 2 children, they have an apartment, they have gas, electric, telephone. Most people have checking accounts. So don't give me an answer that's not going to sit well with me, Miss Elder. Why don't you have a checking account?
We're unable to get one.
Why?
Bankruptcy.
They won't give you a checking
years.
account because you have a bankruptcy?
In the last 2 years, yes, Your Honor.
No, my dear. You may not be able to get a checking account because you've committed bank fraud before. That's a possibility.
I've never done that before, Your Honor.
Maybe your husband has.
No, he's not, Your Honor.
Well, if you have a bankruptcy, you can still get a checking account. All you have to do is put money in it.
We have a savings account.
Well, you have a savings account. Well, then you can open up a checking account in the same bank that you have a savings account in. So there's a reason why you don't have a checking account. You have to do the explanation to me how you got the money, she got the shaft, and how she has nerve to sue you. You have an answer?
No, Your Honor.
So why didn't you give her money back?
Because it wasn't, I don't have that money. I didn't give it to her.
She wasn't paid by your relative. There's a difference if your relative said, I'm going to pay your nanny, and he gives her a bad check. She cashed the check and gave the cash to you. Don't you catch the difference?
I catch the difference, Your Honor, but it wasn't, she didn't give me the whole cash.
How much money did she give you? How much money did you give her?
I gave her $1,900, Your Honor.
I have record of $1,500.
So let's say I believe you now that we're getting to $1,500. She gave you the cash. Why shouldn't you give it back to her if the check was bad?
Well, my relative or my husband's relative should give it to her, not I.
Can I say something? I have record that shows that this was from her account, not from her relative.
Just a second. Maybe the records that you have are going to help me figure out whether she's a thief or dumb.
Okay.
Let me see.
Right there.
They advised that the account on which the check was drawn belonged to Christopher and Wendy Elder. However, the account was closed by the bank in August 2001. That makes you a thief instead of just stupid. Now, that's from the police department.
Well, they didn't talk to me at all.
I don't care whether they don't have to talk to you. Explain it to me. The account had been yours. It was closed in 2001.
I don't see how that's possible. We have record that it's still open.
Is what you're telling me now that you acknowledge this is your account? Listen to me, Miss Elder. I'm going to advise you right now, because I feel as if it's my responsibility to advise you, that we are taping this and that I plan on sending this tape to the local law enforcement authority in Bakersfield. So far, you are very close to admitting to bank fraud. And I feel as if without having the benefit of consulting with an attorney, you would do very well to say to me, I don't think I want to answer these questions anymore, Judge. Because what you say in your answer was, listen, it wasn't my bank account, it was my relative's bank account, and I didn't know anything about it. Now we come to a fact from your mouth that it was a bank account that belonged to you and your husband. You said, and my relative. Maybe, maybe not. But if it belonged to the three of you and a bad check was written on it and you knew that it was an account that had no funds in it, that's bank fraud, for which you can go to jail. And my sense is, if you are a woman who doesn't have a checking account and who has a husband who's worked in the same place for 11 years, you are no stranger to problems with banks. Do you follow my drift?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you want to answer my questions anymore?
No, Your Honor.
Perfect. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,900. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Parties are excused. You may step out.
I trust her. She was one of my closest friends.
I have no comment.
I found out that she's done this all over our town.
I have no comment.
Extreme shock. I don't know why somebody would do this.
Các bạn thân mến, các bạn hãy cùng mình tô màu cho bông hoa này nhé. Đầu tiên là màu xanh lá. Tiếp theo chúng ta có màu cam. theo chúng ta sẽ tô ở đây là màu màu hồng. Màu đỏ ạ. Màu vàng. Các bạn thân mến, vậy là mình đã tô màu xong cho bức tranh những bông hoa này rồi. Các bạn đừng quên like video và đăng ký kênh cho mình nhé. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn.
ये मलक अदील साहब शौक देखे इनका ये मलक साहब फरमाए
ये हमारी टांगी लगी हुई है
ये टांगियां लगी हैं ये देखें ये शहर के हाथ का तैयार किया और कबूतर वापस आता ही नहीं है ऊपर मर के ही आता है जब तक मरता नहीं वो रहता है उसकी लाश नीचे आती है। उस्ताद साहब मुंह दिखाएं माम को बताया जरा अपने हाथ
माम को हम
उस्ताद के शिगिर्द कहाँ से बताएं उस्ताद जी
कबूतर तैयार कराने आती है।
अच्छा कहाँ से उस्ताद जी आती है आपके कबूतर तैयार करवाने बोलो ना चलो
दिल्ली काट दे बाहर
मलक उस्तादों के उस्ताद
भूत छूट गया है
थोड़ा जी रास्ते में उस्तादों के उस्ताद
मराम किथे आ
मनी मामा
उस्ताद नहीं
ओए बोदस
सेट करना
सेट करदा पे
ना ना उस्ताद ने गोली खुद ली
अच्छा गोली खुद ली उस्ताद ने
ये जी
हेलो बदमाश हैं
ये देखे हमारे रजनीकांत साहब आ रहे हैं नहीं यार उस्ताद नहीं यार रंग ही बड़ा बड़ा आए नहीं दे वेरी गल मैंने फिर बोली ले
किंदे निकले ने दोने काट दो
गई थे ਜਦੋਂ ਆਣੇ ਚੱਲਮ ਗਈ थी ਕਾਹਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਜਾਣਾ
जी हमारे
सुबह जाना बड़ा बना इनू
ये कबड्डी के प्लेयर हैं ये इन्होंने ये उस्ताद ने टीम पे मातम कर करके टीम वाल चाड़ दी
शर्त लगाई थी शर्त में हार गया
किससे किसे आपने शर्त लगाई
नहीं लगाई
फिर आपने कितने की
5,000 की
फिर
ये हार गया था
ऐसी बात है
गंज भी साथ ही है एक वो टकला है एक इधर कभी और होगा
और नहीं है
वो फजान था वो अब पता नहीं किधर गया
ये देखिए उस्ताद अपने शौक देख रहे हैं उस्ताद देख कितने मिनट वीडियो होगी पहले देखी
2 मिनट 16
5 मिनट में बनानी यार
वो खुदे जी भी निगाह मार लग
शौक दिखा रहे हैं उस्ताद का ये पहले
और ये
उस्ताद से इजाजत लेंगे कि खुद बच्चों शौक शौक दिखा सकते हैं उस्ताद जी बस ही सीरियस ये जी उस्ताद का शौक है ये देख सकते हैं ये उस्ताद का शौक 2-2 लाख के नीचे किसी का रेट नहीं है ये 4 गहने मैंने अट टाइम खुडे के ऊपर रहता हूँ सिक्योरिटी गार्ड रखे हुए ये
सिक्योरिटी गार्ड है
उस्ताद जी कितने मिनट में यार 1.5 घंटा में पहुंच था के 1.5 घंटे
मैं तो ना बार बार आओ तो
नेट से चढ़ाने नेट से उस्ताद जी बोलें
गाय ओ परले भी बनाओ बड़ा उस्ताद है
नहीं ये बड़ा
उस्ताद साहब को पोटी आ गई है ये अब उस्ताद दादा उस्ताद दादा उस्ताद
ऊपर मुंह करो
मुंह लगा ला बुद्धू के बोल
मलक यूब के उस्ताद
वो लगा बुद्धू
मलक यू पीर बोलो
उस्ताद जी फरमाए
मां जी भी कबूतर साडा बंदा नहीं था सारी रात ही 10
ये उस्ताद शौक करवाते हैं ये उस्ताद हम शौक करवा रहे हैं ये जी 2 लाख का ये पैदा ही 3 लाख का हुआ है आने पर कैमरे सही आने पर ये चेक करें शौक चेक करें उस्ताद का कद भी इतना खुड्डे में आराम से खड़े हो जाते हैं खुड्डा उस्ताद ने अपने लिए बनाया मंजी दरी डाल लेते हैं शौक चेक करें एक खम्भ भी दें जी हमें ये देखें ये उस्ताद का शौक चेक करें मौज प्यारा काली आंख इसका उस्ताद जी कितने रेट लग गया 3 लाख लग गया तो खम्भ भी एक दे जी शौक चेक कर उस्ताद का शौक वाह जी शौक चेक करें ये शौक चेक कर सकते हैं आप उस्ताद का ये शौक चेक करें आप ऐसा शौक किसी
ये इसका 2.5 लाख लग गया
2.5 लाख लग गया 300 लाख खुड्डा ते 2.5 लाख ये जी
किन्ने दी होगी पहले वेस तो ले 5 मिनटां उत्ते लंघ गई 6 मिनटां दे नेड़े पहुंचना
ये जी हमारे उस्ताद मोहतरम
वो आज ही देखता वो आज ही बोल
ये देख सकते हैं आप
इन्हों फिर शेयर
शानदार बाल ये न्यू बाल लगाए उस्ताद ने नहीं यार
ये अच्छी बात है ना छुरी तोंदे नहीं मैं आज तपिया
A security deposit?
No, I do not.
Who has it?
My landlord.
Okay. Do you have pictures of the room
Yes,
that
I do.
you took when you left?
Yes.
I'd like to see them, please.
There's also some pictures in there where you can see the irritation on my face from her slaps.
Her room was in good condition when she left?
Yes, it was.
All right. Well, then she's entitled to her security deposit back.
Yes.
Perfect. Now tell me about this defamation.
In January, I got online and checked my email and noticed a couple responses to Ari, and I hadn't sent an email out in quite a while. I opened it up, and a couple of my contacts had emailed me back saying, what is going on? What is this all about? And I go through my sent messages and find an email that was sent out talking about a virus that I supposedly had, and I was at work when this email was sent out.
When was it sent out?
It was this Friday the 6th to the 7th of January.
Well, where was your computer?
She had a home computer of her own, and she had my passwords.
Well, other than the fact that she had your password, is there any proof that she sent those?
No, I don't, but I do have some other things from one of her websites where she was talking about me.
Well, I'll take a look at that.
And then she also posted a couple pictures.
Well, did you write this? Could you please show this to her?
Yes, I did.
And did you send this out?
I did not send that to anybody.
Did you write it?
Write what?
The caption underneath the photograph.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty nasty.
Yes.
Pretty nasty language. What do you do for a living?
I'm a student.
Student of what?
I'm going to school to be a teacher.
You're going to school to be a teacher
Yes.
of young people?
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Krekovich, what do you think a prospective employer of a school district would think if she were to forward these emails that you've now acknowledged you've sent with the kind of language that you refer to her as, which is clearly disgusting way to refer to a woman? You think that somebody would hire you?
No, I don't. But
You're right. Nobody would.
Those weren't emails that I sent out.
Listen to me. Did you send this one to her?
No. That's my own
posted
personal
on the
blog.
internet.
Just a second. The fact that you even use this word as part of your everyday vernacular would be enough for me as the principal of a school to say, I don't want this potty mouth teaching children. Why do I want to employ Miss Potty Mouth to teach children? I'm sure there are people who know how to refer to women in other than this kind of pejorative. You understand?
Yes.
Do you understand how hurtful that could be to your future and to your career?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Former roommate Corey Krekovich assaulted her and then slandered her on the internet. Corey is countersuing for unpaid utility bills.
Do you understand that by merely discussing this with me, it could be potentially harmful to your career?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, aren't you sorry?
Honestly?
Yes, and if you're not, just make sure you know.
I'm sorry for using those words, and I'm sorry for using them about her, but that is words that I've used and I do use and she does use. And
I don't care about
all
her.
the time.
Are you a school teacher?
No, ma'am.
I'm talking about you and your quest for a job as a school teacher. I wouldn't want you teaching my children or my grandchildren if you just acknowledged to me that this language is part of your everyday
vocabulary.
Well, that's what you just said to me. I use those words. I wouldn't want you. It's not actionable, madam. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. The fact that she has a potty mouth is not actionable.
Well,
Do you
it's
understand?
It's viewable to thousands of people. If I can access it from her personal website, so
It's
can
not
others.
actionable, which means that it doesn't form the basis of a lawsuit. It forms the basis of smutty language. But the defendant should know that you can be harmed by this because now you're armed with this, and I'm going to tell you now that you've acknowledged that these are your words, she might just decide to send it to a prospective employer where you applied to be a student teacher. Would that be nasty?
Yes, it would.
Very nasty and hurtful to you.
Yes.
That's why you don't memorialize your thoughts in this kind of smut, because you never know where they can come around and bite you in the behind. See how I explained to you how they could just come around and bite you in the behind? Did you think of that before?
No, I didn't.
No. Whenever you write something down and memorialize it on the internet, it is there out in cyberspace. Now, I don't use one of those machines, but I know that there are very few things that can be erased permanently. So before you put your fingers to the keyboard, you're supposed to say, my writing this down may make me feel better for the moment, but how could this come back to hurt me? I'm just starting my life and starting my job. Wouldn't it be terrible if when I'm all finished with school and I take my licensing exam, she decides to parade this around and say, this is the kind of person you want teaching your children? So you got to think before you do stupid things. You're getting too old to do stupid things. It's not actionable, but you did get some measure of satisfaction. Right?
Yes.
Good. So far, you owe her $530. Now, what kind of utility bills does she owe you?
She owes me for gas, electric, and water.
What is her share of gas, electric, and water
For December?
I'm speaking. For the month of December.
$106.10.
It was 33% of the bill. I've never seen the bills.
Okay, you have the bills?
Yes, I do.
Bird, would you take the bills from one side and show it to the other side for me, please? You may bypass me.
See.
Okay?
Thank you.
So 106 for your share of the bills for the month of December. You owe her $530. Less $106 is $424. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Irene Atkinson is suing her neighbor, Stacy Scott, for the cost of a new windshield. Irene claims Stacy's son, 6-year-old Eric Larry, broke it with a large bolt.
Miss Atkinson, it is your claim that this young man over here threw a bolt through your car windshield, and
Yes.
you want his mom to pay for that. Yes. And Miss Scott says he's a problem.
Yes.
And she's tried just about everything, and he sneaks out of the house, and he gets himself into trouble. She's sort of at her wit's end. There's some suggestion she's not sure that he did it or not, but she said, even if he did it, what am I supposed to do with him? So now I want to know what his problem is. So would you come up here, young man? Now, your name is Eric, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I want you to keep your voice up so Officer Bird can hear you, okay? Like this. Can you do that?
Yes.
Remember when you're out in the street and you want to call somebody down the block? Let me hear you call Peter.
Peter.
Good. That's the way I want to hear you. You have brothers and sisters, Eric?
Yes, sister.
How old is she?
12.
Is she a nice girl?
Yes.
She give your mother any aggravation?
No.
Now let's get to you. You're 6.
Yes.
You give your mother some trouble?
Yes.
Do you behave in school?
Yes.
Sometimes not?
Yes.
You know that it's very important that you tell me the truth?
Yes.
Why?
Because.
Because it's important to tell the truth all the time.
Yes.
Especially in court, right? You know this lady?
Yes.
How do you know her?
She lives in Philly.
She lives in?
Philly.
He's saying she lives in Philly. He actually don't know her, Your Honor.
Do you live in Philadelphia?
No.
Where do you live?
Yes.
This lady says that she saw you throw something in her car windshield and the glass broke. You remember that?
Yes.
Yes or no? I don't hear. Don't look at your mom. You look at me. Do you remember throwing something through her windshield?
Yes.
Tell me why you did that.
Because this boy named Chris, maybe when I was walking on the street, he shook me. He went near the corner to the rock at the window.
I didn't understand all of that except something about a boy named Chris. Who threw the rock through her windshield?
I don't know.
I thought you just told me that you threw the rock through her windshield. So I'm going to ask you again. Who threw the rock or the bolt through her windshield?
I don't know.
Were you there when it was broken?
Yes.
How many people were throwing rocks?
2.
Who?
This boy named Chris and me.
Were you supposed to be out that day?
No.
Did you sneak out of the house?
Yes.
Who was home with you?
My mom.
How did you sneak out of the house?
I went downstairs to put my clothes on and open the door.
Were you supposed to be upstairs? Were you being punished, or were you supposed to be doing your homework? What were you doing in the house?
Being punished.
You know what you were being punished for? You remember?
No.
Go and sit down. You remember what he was being punished for?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm a single parent, trying to maintain a household. I have a 12-year-old daughter and him also. Eric has given me problems throughout the neighborhood. Not just Miss Atkins comes to my house, the whole neighborhood comes to my house. I try to keep him in the house for a month. Just to avoid the problem. I don't bother nobody, and I tell him I don't want no trouble to my house. Now, this particular day, July the 16th, that this had happened, I was in the house. Miss Atkins and the other few people had came to my home stating that Eric and this other little boy, Fuzzle, had broke the church window, and Eric had supposedly had broke the windshield window. Now, from my misunderstanding, she wasn't out there, and neither was I. So we both just going by he say, she say. Now, when I asked Eric what had happened, he told me the boy Chris came up to him, choked him by his neck. When he struggled to let go, that Chris drove back, threw the rock at him, and he said they all was throwing rocks. So I'm not sure if Eric broke the window or Chris or Fuzzle. But my thing is she pointed my son out, and I want to know why am I the only one standing up here being sued when there was 2 other children out there throwing rocks also?
Let's find out.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, when the incident happened, I had hollered at Eric and one of his little friends that was with him. They were throwing rocks. I turn around, I go back in my house. I go upstairs. I'm not even upstairs 4 minutes. I look out my window, and I saw Eric throw the rock or bolt. I thought it was a rock at the time. I heard a noise. I ran downstairs. He was running home, and I hollered at him, and I said something bad. The police were called. They had pulled up by the church, because here I come to find out that the 2 boys had also broken the church windows.
What was he being punished for? Do you remember?
Oh, his behavior. Not like I said, not only Miss Atkins come to my house, the whole
Is he in therapy?
I'm trying to get that now because I have child services have came to my home. And I'm not saying Miss Atkins or anybody, because don't nobody really know me on this block, because like I say, I stay to myself. But I have child services have came to my house that said some allegations stating that I was an unfit mother, that my child be out all times of night, that I drink, I'm on drugs, and that was untrue. They have dropped that case. Now they trying to work on him, understand, wondering what's going on with him. Why is his behavior like this?
So have you started?
Yes, I was supposed to hear from Ms. Beth that's handling the case, but I haven't heard from her yet because he was supposed to go get tested, You
have to stay on top of it.
Exactly.
You really have to stay on top of it.
Yes.
Because what was interesting about your answer is you didn't deny that you're having trouble with him.
Right.
That he snuck out of the house.
Yes.
He was being punished.
Yes.
But quite frankly, Ms. Scott, between you and the plaintiff, you have to absorb the cost of the windshield. Because I believe her when she said that she saw him throw. It turned out to be a bolt, which I assume you have with you.
Yes.
The windshield you had managed to have replaced for $270?
Yes.
Don't let it get away from you.
Yes.
He's, he's still very young. How does he do in school?
Oh my goodness. School, the same thing. I'm not going to be in denial about his behavior. Okay, last year in kindergarten, it was my first time knowing that kindergarten got suspended for 3 times. Yes. I told him I'm not going to be up here in denial about his behavior because I'm trying to get help for him.
You let it get away from you, it gets too big. Right now he's little.
Yes.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $270. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Please, may step up.
I really didn't have much to say because the proof was there.
If I have to keep him in the house, I will.
He's just unsupervised. He just needs more parental supervision.
Has been sworn in. You may be seated.
Mr. Gage, it is your claim that the defendant stole a sign from in front of a building that you recently purchased.
Correct.
When did you purchase the building?
March 15th of 05.
And prior to your purchasing the building, way prior to your purchasing the building, store in that building, what kind of a store was it?
A pest control business.
And when did you vacate that building?
In July of 04.
The Mercers say that they left their sign when they vacated in July of 04, fully intending to move the sign to their new location, that the person from whom you purchased the building knew that it was their sign and that they were going to get it. And they even say that they told you it was their sign and they were going to come and get it. Well, so they moved out in July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So 9 months later, after you purchased the building, they came or had somebody on their behalf come and cut their sign off your pole.
Correct.
And move it to their location. So you not only want the sign or the value of the sign, but also you say it costs you time, money, etc. So you want lots of other expenses. Did Mr. and Mrs. Mercer discuss this sign with you?
Okay, prior to me purchasing the building, I was kind of filling out the area, making sure it's a good area. I noticed their sign was up there, and they had moved next door because...
Do you have a picture of the sign?
I sure do. Actually, I got a couple pictures there.
Okay, it's Mercer Pest Control, correct?
Yes.
And that's the sign you're talking about, this big horizontal sign that's attached to a pole.
Yes, it's a 4x8. I don't know how they removed it. I mean, it's just, you know, it's a big sign.
4 bolts.
Okay, these 4 bolts. Okay.
Just a minute. Whose pole is it?
It's Main Street's. It's my pole, as well as the sign.
Okay, well, that's for me to determine.
Yes.
That's for me to determine. Okay, I gather what you can do is you can sort of slip out their sign that says Mercer Pest Control and put in your sign.
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to get back to my original question. Were you advised that this sign belonged to the Mercers and they intended to get it at some point?
Okay, when I was filling out the area, basically seeing, you know, how the area was, I asked about the building, how was the building. They said, oh, it's a great building. She said that we redid the whole sign. She never once said that she was going to take the sign, okay?
That's a lie. I'm sorry.
Don't.
Yeah,
sorry,
when I went back after I purchased the building, I told them that I had ordered new faces for the sign and that when I put my new faces in, I will give them their old sign back. And, you know, there was some debate. They did say...
Just a second. So at that point, what did the Mercers say to you?
Well, we didn't... this was later on. After all this happened, they disagreed. They said, well, you told us that we could come and take the sign. And I never said that at that point. She told me that she was hinting to me the whole time, like how we redid the sign, how we did...
ये देखे हमारे रजनीकांत साहब आ रहे हैं नहीं यार उस्ताद नहीं यार रंग ही बड़ा बड़ा है आए नहीं दे रहे वेरी गल नहीं मेरे भूल गया
किंदे निकलियो है दोने काड़ दो
जी हमारे सुबह जाना ऊपर आ बना इनू ये कबड्डी के प्लेयर हैं ये उस्ताद ने टीम पे मातम कर करके टीम वाल चाड़ दिए
शर्त लगाई थी शर्त में हार गया
किससे किसे आपने शर्त लगाई नहीं लगाई फिर आपने कितने की
5,000 की
फिर
ये हार गया था
ऐसी बात है
गंज भी साथ ही है एक वोट अकला है एक इधर का भी और होगा
और नहीं है
वो फजान था वो अब पता नहीं किधर गया
ये देखिए उस्ताद अपने शौक देख रहे हैं उस्ताद देखिए कितने मिनट वीडियो होगी पहले देखिए
2 मिनट 16
5 मिनट बनानी यार
वो खुदे जी भी निगाह मार लग
शौक दिखा रहे हैं उस्ताद का ये पहले
और ये
उस्ताद से इजाजत लेंगे कि खुद बच्चों शौक दिखा सकते हैं उस्ताद जी बस ऐसे ही ये जी उस्ताद का शौक है ये देख सकते हैं ये उस्ताद का शौक 2-2 लाख के नीचे किसी का रेट नहीं है ये 4 गहने मैंने अट टाइम खुडे के ऊपर रहता हूँ सिक्योरिटी गार्ड रखे हुए ये
सिक्योरिटी गार्ड है
ये उस्ताद जी कितने मिनट में
मिनटां में
यार 1.5 घंटा में पहुंचता के 1.5 घंटे
मैं तो ना बार बार आओ तो
नेट से चढ़ाने नेट से साजे बोले
गाय ओ परले भी बनाओ बड़ा उस्ताद है
नहीं ये बड़ा
उस्ताद साहब को पोटी आ गई है ये अब उस्ताद दादा उस्ताद
तू कर्म करो
मुंह लगा ला बुद्धू के बोल
मतलब यूब के उस्ताद
वो लगा बुद्धू
मतलब यू पीर
उस्ताद जी फरमाए
मां जी भी कबूतर साडा बंदा नहीं था सारी रात ही 10
ये हमें ये उस्ताद शौक करवाते हैं ये उस्ताद हम शौक करवा रहे हैं ये जी 2 लाख का ये पैदा ही 3 लाख का हुआ है ये शौक आने पर कैमरे सही आने पर ये चेक करें शौक चेक करें उस्ताद का कद भी इतना खुड्डे में आराम से खड़े हो जाते हैं खुड्डा उस्ताद ने अपने लिए बनाया मंजी दरी डाल लेते हैं शौक चेक कर एक खम्भ भी दें जी हमें ये देखिए ये उस्ताद का शौक चेक करें मौज प्यारा काली आंख इसका उस्ताद जी कितने रेट लग गया 3 लाख लग गया तो खम्भ भी एक दे जी शौक चेक कर उस्ताद का शौक वाह जी शौक चेक करें ये शौक चेक कर सकते हैं उस्ताद का ये शौक चेक करें आप ऐसा शौक किसी
ये इसका 2.5 लाख लग गया
2.5 लाख लग गया 300 लाख खुड्डा तो 2.5 लाख ये जी
किन्ने दी होगी पहले वेस तो ले 5 मिनटां उत्ते लंघ गई 6 मिनटां दे नेड़े पहुंचना
ये जी हमारे उस्ताद मोहतरम
वो आज ही देखता वो आज ही बोल
ये देख सकते हैं आप
इन्हों फिर शेयर कर
शानदार बाल ये न्यू बाल लगाए उस्ताद ने नहीं यार
ये अच्छी बात है
नहीं
ओए ना छुरी तोंदे नहीं मैं आज तपिया
6 मिनटां दी होगी